Chapter 991. Turning the Tables 1. We have no choice. We're the disadvantaged group and don't have any backing. Lung Ruoxue said helplessly. When the customers in the shop heard Lung Ruoxue's words and saw that she was a weak woman, they could not help but pity her. Even the shopkeeper felt that President Liu and Di-Run had gone overboard, though his shop also belonged to the Artificer Association. God damn it. What the hell are you talking about? Di-Run snapped, reacting to the situation. I'm not spouting nonsense. You're so fierce. Lung Ruoxue's beautiful eyes were filled with tears as she said fearfully, making everyone's hearts ache. Your Excellency Di-Run, you're the chief artificer of the Flame City's Artificer Association. How can you be so fierce to a girl? Someone said indignantly. Exactly. This is really too much. How could Your Excellency Di-Run do something like forcibly occupying someone else's house, and even bite them back to ask for compensation? I really couldn't tell that Your Excellency Di-Run was such a person. The people in the inn began to discuss as soon as someone took the lead. The strange looks they gave Di-Run made him burn with anger. Damn it, come with me. Di-Run was so angry that he wanted to pull Lung Ruoxue away. In an instant, a cold light flashed and Di-Run's skinny arm was exposed in front of everyone. A bright and extremely sharp dagger appeared in Lung Ruoxue's hand. You old fart, don't touch me. Otherwise, it won't be as simple as your sleeve being sliced off next time. Lung Ruoxue warned with a fearful expression. However, the hand holding the dagger trembled slightly, revealing her nervousness and fear. How shameless of you, old man. Taking advantage of a young lady. Someone shouted while Di-Run flushed. She's my mate, she's mine. How am I taking advantage of her? Di-Run shouted at the top of his voice. I'm just as collateral to pay off the debt. I can leave after my family and subordinates return the money. Lung Ruoxue muttered softly. Humph. They won't be able to fork out that kind of money. You can forget about leaving for the rest of your life, Di-Run said honestly. Oh, Lung Ruoxue replied faintly and did not continue. You. Di-Run pointed at Lung Ruoxue, unable to say anything for a long time. What about me? Shopkeeper, quickly bring this dying old man back to the room. Otherwise, you'll be responsible if he dies of anger here. Lung Ruoxue quickly reminded the shopkeeper, seeing Di-Run pant heavily. Ah, that won't do. I won't be able to bear the responsibility if he really died of anger. I'd better go to the Artificer Association to get someone here. The shopkeeper was also afraid when he heard Lung Ruoxue's words. After saying that, he ran out of the shop. Sigh. Age is really unforgiving. Lung Ruoxue sighed as she looked at Di-Run, who was still panting heavily. I know, right? The younger man chimed in. Just as everyone was sighing and lamenting, the shopkeeper returned with a few people. There's still time, isn't there? The shopkeeper asked worriedly. He was asking subtly if the man was dead. As soon as he said this, Di-Run became even angrier. However, he could not complete a sentence. He just kept pointing at the shopkeeper with his finger and glaring. Don't worry, he's still breathing. Lung Ruoxue chuckled. Oh. That's good. In the shopkeeper's eyes, as long as the person was not dead, he could not care less. Manager Chen, do you think we should get His Excellency Di-Run to go away? If anything happens to him in this shop, I won't be able to bear the responsibility. The shopkeeper said to the man beside him. The man called Manager Chen carefully sized up Di-Run and realized that he was indeed not in a good state. Di-Run was President Yao's favorite. If anything happened to him, he could not bear the responsibility. Therefore, he could not help but hesitate. Manager Chen, right? I suggest you bring this old man to the Artificer Association. Otherwise, if anything happens to him, none of you will be able to escape, Lung Ruoxue reminded. Manager Chen thought for a moment, and felt that what this beautiful girl said made sense. He immediately decided to bring Di-Run back to the association, and let the president decide. Yes. Manager Chen nodded, then glanced at Lung Ruoxue and asked, I wonder who you are to him? Di-Run and him were acquaintances, but had never met this girl before. Me? You'll know when the time comes. Lung Ruoxue smiled faintly and said mysteriously, Oh, carry His Excellency Di-Run back to the Artificer Association, and hand him over to the president. Manager Chen did not expect this girl to keep him in suspense, and could not help but laugh. Then he instructed his subordinates. Yes, sir, the men replied. Then 4 of the guards lifted D-Run by his limbs as if he were a wild boar. Lung Ruoxue looked at the 4 people's perfunctory actions, and couldn't help but laugh in her heart. Haha. It seemed that D-Run wasn't very popular either. He hadn't even done anything yet, but he was already enjoying the treatment of a wild boar. Manager Chen, they are D-Ren's servants and guards. You have to bring them along. Lung Ruoxue pointed at the burly man and the others. Oh, why did this restaurant move their entire family here? Manager Chen muttered in confusion. Manager Chen, His Excellency D-Ren's house was burned down. The shopkeeper explained. Oh. It seemed that this matter had not completely spread. Otherwise, how could Manager Chen not know? There's such a thing? Who's so bold? Manager Chen's curiosity was piqued. Far away and close at hand, the shopkeeper said mysteriously. It's not you, is it? Manager Chen actually joked. I don't have the guts. The shopkeeper quickly denied. Stop guessing. I gave the order to burn it, Lung Ruoxue said with a smile. Little girl, you have guts. Manager Chen was full of admiration. Youth knows no fear. She even dared to burn down His Excellency D-Ren's residence. Her courage was really extraordinary. Chapter 992. Turning the Tables 2. I was forced. Lung Ruoxue said innocently and gave a perfectly guileless look. Little girl, are you going to the Artificer Association with me? Manager Chen asked tentatively. If he didn't know about this, it would have been fine. Now that he knew that this little girl had burned down D-Ren's house, if he let her escape, the president probably wouldn't let him off. Okay. Lung Ruoxue nodded. Why not? The show has just begun. All right, come with me. Manager Chen ordered, and the group left the inn. After Lung Ruoxue and the others left, the young man kept staring at their backs in a daze. Young master, what are you looking at? They're already gone. The attendant beside the young man asked in confusion. Nothing, the young man said, but his expression remained thoughtful. Lung Ruoxue followed Manager Chen and the others to the Artificer Association. At this moment, Manager Chen already knew that Lung Ruoxue was staying behind to pay off her debt, so he arranged their accommodations together. Because of D-Ren's status in Artificer Association, they were assigned to a separate, independent courtyard. There were about dozens of houses in the courtyard and 2 gardens. It was quite spacious. Lung Ruoxue was very satisfied with this place. In D-Ren's room, D-Ren was lying on the bed with his eyes closed, while D-Ren's butler Chen, Lung Ruoxue, and the others stood by the bed and sized up D-Ren, who was either really unconscious or faking it. Dear master, is this old man dead? Darling's innocent voice suddenly sounded in everyone's ears. After hearing this, everyone couldn't help but break out in cold sweat. However, Lung Ruoxue replied very seriously. He seems to be dead. However, even if he's not dead, he probably won't live for long. Oh. Then let's celebrate. Darling said happily. What's there to celebrate? This old man still owes us money. If he dies, who will we get our money from? Lung Ruoxue stroked Darling's furry head and complained. Boo-hoo, then what should we do? Darling's beautiful eyes were filled with tears, and looked extremely pitiful. Darling tilted its head and thought for a moment before saying, Sweet master, let Darling see if I can wake this old grandpa up. You have a way? Lung Ruoxue was pleasantly surprised. I can try. Darling couldn't guarantee it can wake D-Run. Manager Chen, can you let my beast try? Lung Ruoxue asked for Manager Chen's opinion. Then let it try. The corner of Manager Chen's mouth twitched. The conversation between the man and the beast could definitely anger a person to death. Sigh. No wonder D-Run was unwilling to wake up. Moreover, he did not think that a small beast could have any special ability to wake someone who was still unconscious after eating the pill. Darling, Manager Chen gave you a chance. You have to perform well. Lung Ruoxue reminded worriedly. Sure. Darling did its best to nod. Immediately after, a bolt of purple lightning pounced on D-Ren's face. Swoosh. 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 Darling's claws flew in unison. The claw marks drew a beautiful arc in the air, bringing with them red fragments. Everyone was dumbfounded when they saw this. This was too violent. With Darling's efforts, it didn't take long for Ren's face to be covered in claw marks and become a bloody mess. It hurts. Suddenly, Ren, who was lying on the bed, roared and sat up. Darling had already jumped back into Lung Ruoxia's arms before he said anything and looked innocently at everyone present. Your Excellency Ren, you're finally awake. We were so worried, Manager Chen said quickly. Did I pass out? All D could remember was that he'd been furious, but he hadn't expected to pass out. Yes, I gave you a pill but you didn't wake up, Manager Chen explained. In fact, he wanted to say that if not for this little purple fox, you wouldn't have woken up until now. However, he also knew that Ren wouldn't be happy to hear this, so he naturally wouldn't provoke him. Oh, why does my face hurt so much? Ren was puzzled and wiped his face with his hand, but he was furious when he saw the blood on his hand. God damn it, who did this? Ren shouted a little angrily. This little fox did it, master, said the butler quickly. You little bastard animal. How dare you ambush me while I was unconscious? You're really tired of living. Ren looked at Darling in Lung Ruoxia's arms and gritted his teeth. Darling is not an animal, Darling retorted with tears in its eyes, looking extremely aggrieved. Your Excellency Ren, listen to me. This little fox didn't ambush you. He was saving you. Manager Chen said helplessly. He couldn't help but complain about Ren in his heart. Why didn't this old man figure out the truth of the matter and accuse the beast? Even though that little fox's methods were a little different, at least it had achieved the goal. Saving me? Don't tell me all these bruises on my face were to save me? Ren asked angrily. If not, why would you wake up? Manager Chen said truthfully. That's right. Instead of thanking my darling, you actually scolded it. What an ungrateful hypocrite, Lung Ruoxia said with disdain. Hear, hear. Darling nodded vigorously at its cute master's words. Is His Excellency Ren awake? At this moment, a slightly familiar voice sounded outside the door. Lung Ruoxia knew that the pig president was here when she heard this. When the butler heard this voice, he immediately went to open the door. A moment later, Lung Ruoxia heard the butler's aggrieved voice. President Yao, you're finally here. You have to uphold justice for my master. I've already heard what happened from President Liu. Don't worry, I'll stand up for you. Humph. Those who dare to cause trouble in my flame city will be expelled. And that is a light punishment. Yao Yuan said angrily. This Ren was white him. One had to look at the owner before beating a dog. And these people clearly did not take him seriously. Chapter 993. Turning the Tables 3. Yao Yuan had already stepped into the room as he spoke. However, before he reached the bed, his eyes were attracted by Lung Ruoxia standing at the side. Instantly, his legs seemed to be frozen. Wasn't this the little beauty he had lost sight of? He didn't expect to see the beauty he had been thinking about here. At this moment, his heart seemed to fly and he suddenly felt light. Miss, I didn't expect us to meet here by chance, Yao Yuan said affectionately. His eyes were filled with concern. At this moment, Ren had long been forgotten by him. Now his heart and eyes were filled with Lung Ruoxia. It's President Zhu. I didn't expect to meet you again so soon. Lung Ruoxia stroked the fur on her darling and smiled faintly. My surname is not Zhu. My surname is Yao. Yao Yuan reminded her helplessly. He could not understand why such a beautiful lady had such a bad memory. He had already said several times that his surname was not Zhu, but this beautiful lady could not remember. Thinking of this, he felt depressed. That's not important, Lung Ruoxia said disapprovingly. By the way, President Zhu, I forgot to tell you that I asked someone to burn the place where this old man lives, Lung Ruoxia added. Why? Yao Yuan asked in confusion, but he couldn't help but think to himself, if this was done by the little beauty, then he would be in a difficult position. Doesn't President Zhu know that that should be my old ancestor's residence? Lung Ruoxia questioned with a smile. Who is your old ancestor? Yao Yuan asked foolishly. At this moment, His heart was filled with Lung Ruoxue, and he couldn't think of anyone else. Lung Xiaoyu. Why? President Zhu forgot so quickly? When Lung Ruoxue said this, everyone in the room was stunned. Especially Diren. He did not expect this devastatingly beautiful girl to be Lung Xiaoyu's descendant. This made him shudder. It had to be known that Lung Xiaoyu's reputation was much greater than his. Moreover, he was definitely not someone he could afford to offend. Thinking of this, he immediately recalled the meaningful glance that the extremely handsome young man had given him before he left. He could not help but break out in cold sweat. After being reminded by Lung Ruoxue, Yao Yuan suddenly remembered that this little beauty was the descendant of that annoying Lung Xiaoyu. However, he was momentarily mesmerized by her beauty, so he forgot the fact. Alas! What sold he do? As for that house, he also remembered that it was indeed Lung Xiaoyu's residence. However, he saw that Lung Xiaoyu had not come back to stay for a long time, and Diren had taken a fancy to that place, so he asked Diren to stay in it. He was really in a difficult position now. Manager Chen was also surprised because he had never dreamed that this little girl had such a strong background. In that case, wouldn't Diren be the unlucky one? At this moment, his mind was spinning. President Zhu, since you said that you will uphold justice for this old man, then please tell me now. What do you plan to do to me? Well, I heard that my old ancestor's master is also in Flame City, so you must be fair. Lung Ruoxue half reminded and half warned him. Ugh. Yao Yuan's forehead was covered in cold sweat. He did not know what to do. Miss Lung, don't worry. I will definitely be fair. After a while, Yao Yuan braced himself and said, That's good. By the way, we've already been expelled from Flame City by President Liu. He even ordered that no artificer is allowed to refine weapons for us. You should know this, right? Lung Ruoxue asked again. I'm not very sure about this. Yao Yuan quickly denied it, but he cursed President Liu in his heart. Damn it! Why was he always causing trouble for him? He didn't even figure out the other party's identity before giving the order. It's fine if you don't know. Ain't I telling you now? By the way, please help me tell my ancestor's master that his disciple was unfilial and was chased out of the Artificer Association. Lung Ruoxue smiled lightly. I'm afraid it's not appropriate. Yao Yuan said awkwardly. Damn it, did he dare to say this to Sir Mo Yen? Wasn't that courting death? It's already done. What else is inappropriate? Don't be pretentious, Lung Ruoxue said with a smile. Miss Lung, where is Lung Xiaoyu now? Yao Yuan asked carefully. I don't know. He was chased out of Flame City by President Liu, and I was forced by Old Man Diren to stay as collateral for the debt. So we lost contact, Lung Ruoxue said helplessly. I'm this old man's personal maidservant now. I don't know anything else, Lung Ruoxue added. Miss Lung, I don't want you to be my personal maidservant anymore. The debt between us is settled and even. What do you think? At this moment, Diren suggested. Even though he was a little lecherous, after knowing her identity, he knew that he had caused a huge trouble. He couldn't afford to use this little troublemaker. That petty man Lung Xiaoyu definitely wouldn't let him off. Or even? Is that something for you to decide on? Dream on. Lung Ruoxue said without giving him face. Wouldn't her act be in vain if they got even so easily? My little ancestor. What do you want then? Diren wanted to cry, but no tears came. Boohoo, had hit a wall this time. I don't want to do anything. I just want to be your personal maidservant until my family comes to redeem me with money. Lung Ruoxue teased with a naughty smile. My little ancestor, didn't I say that the debt between us is settled? I accept my bad luck. I don't need you to compensate me, okay? Diren said helplessly. No, that house wasn't yours to begin with. Of course, you're not qualified to ask me to compensate for any losses. However, you've lived in my ancestor's house for so long. You have to pay some rent. Besides, after you lived in that house, we all found it dirty. Therefore, you have to pay for the building of a new house. In addition, you have to compensate us for the mental damage caused to us because you forcefully occupied the house. Lung Ruoxue mentioned all of them one by one. Diren's heart sank with every sentence she said. When she said dozens of sentences, Di Ren's eyes rolled back and he fainted again. Chapter 994. Turning the Tide 4. I'm not done yet. How dare you pretend to faint? Lung Ruoxue couldn't help but be a little angry when she saw Di Ren faint again. She took out her dagger from her bracelet and stabbed it at Di Ren's body. Ah! Di Ren screamed in pain and jumped up from the bed. Actually, he was pretending to faint, but Lung Ruoxue's stab was real, so he was exposed with that pain. You. Di Ren covered the wound on his body and pointed at Lung Ruoxue, speechless with anger. What about me? I'm just doing my job as a maidservant. Look. Aren't you jumping around now? Lung Ruoxue said calmly. Since you're awake, I'll continue. If you dare to faint again, you won't just be stabbed, Lung Ruoxue warned. Then Lung Ruoxue started to talk nonstop. When she finished speaking one by one, she calculated Di Ren's account and finally concluded that Di Ren owed her a total of 6 million supreme-grade crystals. Why is there so much? Di Ren asked in disbelief. Even if that house belonged to Lung Xiaoyu, it wasn't worth that much. I even gave you a discount. Lung Ruoxue chuckled. I don't have that much money, Di Ren said fearfully. Oh, this little girl was too ruthless. Compared to her, he was so kind. Then pay with your body, Lung Ruoxue said lightly. Pay the debt with my body. How? Do you want me to be your personal attendant, too? Di Ren couldn't help fantasizing. Are you worthy? Lung Ruoxue smiled faintly and didn't say anything else. How am I not worthy? I'm the chief artificer of Flame City. God knows how many people have to act according to my wishes, Di Ren said proudly. Sigh. Why are there so many dead cows in the sky? Lung Ruoxue didn't even look at Di Ren but looked up at the roof. What do you mean by that? Di Ren asked, puzzled. You blew the cows to death, right? Lung Ruoxue teased with a faint smile. You. How dare you say that about me? Di Ren understood. This girl was trying to mock him. What's wrong with that? Don't forget that you still owe me a debt. Pay it back slowly. If you can't pay it back, let your descendants pay it back. Moreover, you have to pay interest. Lung Ruoxue reminded him. Then, she raised her beautiful eyes to size up Di Ren and asked curiously, Old man, do you have descendants? You. Di was about to say, of course he did. But he choked and fainted again before he could catch his breath. This old man's body is too weak. President Zhu, if this old man dies, you have to pay back the money he owes me. Lung Ruoxue turned her gaze to Yao Yuan and said, On what? Yao Yuan was shocked. Why did he have to pay the debt Di Ren incurred? No reason. President Zhu should know why my ancestor's house was occupied by this old man. Lung Ruoxue deliberately didn't say it too clearly, because she believed that this pig knew. How would I know? Yao Yuan refused. He did not want to admit that he was the one who asked Di Ren to stay in it. You don't know? Alright, since President Zhu doesn't know, I won't make things difficult for you. I'll wait here for my ancestor's master to find me. When the time comes, I'll ask him to help us. Lung Ruoxue found a chair and sat down, looking indifferent. Don't be like this, Miss Lung. Let's talk things out. Yao Yuan said fearfully. Damn it. Why did he feel that this matter was getting more and more troublesome? I said it properly. But President Zhu doesn't want to listen properly. Lung Ruoxue said innocently. Miss Lung, what exactly do you want? Yao Yuan was helpless. He knew that he could not let Sir Mo Yin know about this. Otherwise, no one could protect him. Ever since I came to this famous Flame City, I've only been disappointed. I've never felt comfortable. Sigh. President Zhu, what do you think we should do? Lung Ruoxue sighed and asked helplessly. I can compensate Miss Lung for your mental damage, but 6 million supreme-grade crystals is too much. I can't afford it. Yao Yuan gritted his teeth and made up his mind. Looks like we can't come to an agreement. Forget it. Let's wait for the old ancestor's master to make the decision. Lung Ruoxue said stubbornly. With that, she left the room with Darling as if no one else was around. At the same time, two extremely handsome young men were sitting side by side in a luxurious room in the Artificer Association. In front of them was a screen that showed everything that had just happened in Di Ren's room. Chapter 995. Lu Feng's Stand 1. These two handsome men were none other than Mo Yen and Lu Feng, two of the three famous vice presidents of the association headquarters. At the moment, they were watching the activity in Di Ren's room through the light screen. However, at the end, both of them couldn't help but smile. Your disciple's descendant is so powerful. Those trash from the Artificer Association were actually fooled by her. Lu Feng couldn't help but say, "Hee, that disciple of mine doesn't like to suffer losses. I didn't expect his descendants to be even more so." Mo Yen smiled happily. Obviously, he had a good impression of Lung Ruoxue. "Hee, that disciple of mine doesn't like to suffer losses. I didn't expect his descendants to be even more so." Mo Yen smiled happily. Obviously, he had a good impression of Lung Ruoxue. "Yes, I know. Even my disciple isn't in a hurry. As a master, of course I'm not in a hurry," Mo Yen said disapprovingly. However, he also felt a little upset. If other disciples encountered such a thing, they would probably not hesitate to pull out a backer. However, his disciple actually didn't even mention his master's name. Although he knew that his disciple wanted to solve it himself, it didn't feel good to have no disciple to rely on. "Ooh, don't think that I don't know. Your disciple is clearly trying to blow things up by doing this. However, this flame city is indeed too chaotic now. They even dare to let others live in your disciple's house. They really don't take us seriously," Lu Feng said unhappily. "I bought that house a long time ago. I wanted to find a chance to settle the procedures and give it to Xiaoyu. But he returned to the boundless heaven continent, so this matter was delayed," Mo Yen explained softly. "Hee, it doesn't matter if we didn't buy it. With our status in the Artificer Association, don't we have the right to arrange a residence for our disciples?" Lu Feng said disapprovingly. In fact, they were all clear in their hearts. This was clearly caused by Yao Yuan. "By the way, let's discuss who we should hand over the management of Flame City to in the future," Lu Feng said again. Right now he really disliked Yao Yuan. However, there was actually no one useful in the Artificer Association. "Sigh. I can't tell that you're also an impatient person. Do you think you can get Yao Yuan down with just this matter? That person and his family won't let this matter rest," Mo Yen said meaningfully. There were a total of 3 vice presidents in the association headquarters. He and Lu Feng each held a position, and the other vice president was a woman. Her relationship with Yao Yuan was also extraordinary. At the same time, she was also Yao Yuan's greatest backer in the association headquarters. Most of the time, he and Lu Feng basically turned a blind eye to what the vice president did. As long as she wasn't too overboard, the two of them weren't willing to be too calculative with a woman. This had gradually developed into that arrogant and domineering personality. It even gave outsiders the illusion that she was the first vice president of the association headquarters. Most of the time, he and Lu Feng basically turned a blind eye to what the vice president did. As long as she wasn't too overboard, the two of them weren't willing to be too calculative with a woman. This had gradually developed into that arrogant and domineering personality. It even gave outsiders the illusion that she was the first vice president of the association headquarters. "Tisk, don't tell me you're afraid of her." Lu Feng rolled his eyes at Mo Yen and said disdainfully, "Women can be very troublesome when they make trouble," Mo Yen said helplessly. He had never had much patience with unreasonable women, so he would not easily argue with them. Otherwise, he was afraid that he would kill them if he lost control. "Haha, I think you can arrange for your disciple's descendant to deal with that woman," Lu Feng teased. "There's no need to arrange it. She will find this little girl herself," Mo Yen said. "Are you sure?" Lu Feng was in disbelief. That woman wouldn't be so cheap as to take the initiative to bully a little girl, right? "Don't underestimate a woman's jealousy," Mo Yen reminded him. Are you talking about Yao Yuan?" Lu Feng said in disbelief. "What do you think?" Mo Yen glanced at Lu Feng. I don't understand. What is that woman like about Yao Yuan?" Lu Feng asked curiously. "A woman's heart is like a needle at the bottom of the sea," Mo Yen said indifferently, then stopped talking. At this moment, Lung Ruoxue had already returned to the room that Manager Chen had arranged for her. She lay on the bed with the treasure in her arms, and started to contact the freak and the others. Knowing that they were now living outside the city and that everything was fine, she calmed down and thought about her next plan. The next day, Lung Ruoxue ran to Di Ren's room early in the morning. Looking at Di Ren, who was still lying on the bed and looking slightly weak, Lung Ruoxue smiled and asked, "What's wrong with His Excellency Di Ren? It's only been a night. Why are you so haggard?" Humph. Di Ren, who had his eyes closed, snorted and turned around. It was obvious that he didn't want to bother with Lung Ruoxue, but Lung Ruoxue wouldn't let him off. "Stop pretending. Get up and earn money. Don't forget that you still owe me 6 million supreme-grade crystals." Lung Ruoxue urged with a naughty smile. "You." Di Ren pointed at Lung Ruoxue, trembling with anger. "Guards!" Lung Ruoxue shouted outside the door. In an instant, the head butler ran in and walked in front of Lung Ruoxue. He bowed respectfully and said, "Miss, what can I do for you?" "Call a few people and carry your master to the street," Lung Ruoxue instructed. Yes. The butler did not dare to disobey, much less look at his master. He hurriedly went out and called a few guards in. When the guards entered the room, they ran straight for Di Ren. They grabbed him by his limbs and dragged him from the bed. Then they prepared to leave the room. "Wait, what do you want? Where are you taking me?" Di Ren asked in a panic. Damn, weren't these people his guards? How dare they treat him, their master, like this? Were they rebelling? He was furious. However, the guards, including the butler, did not dare to pay attention to him. They just picked him up and walked out of the door. Chapter 996. Lu Feng Stand 2. The guards carried him out of the Artificer Association and into the street. Then, they found a spacious, crowded place to put him down. "Miss Lung, is this place okay?" the butler said very respectfully. Now he didn't dare to be disrespectful to Lung Ruoxue at all. If he had known that those people had such a powerful background, he wouldn't have dared to make a move even if he had 10 guts. Okay. Lung Ruoxue nodded in satisfaction, then instructed the butler to call more people over. Yes. The butler took the order and left. "What do you want?" Seeing that no one was paying attention to him, Di Ren took the initiative to ask Lung Ruoxue. "Nothing. I just want you to earn money and repay your debt as soon as possible." Lung Ruoxue chuckled. "Then why did you get me out on the street?" "I'm still a sick man," said Di, slightly aggrieved. "What does your illness have to do with me?" Lung Ruoxue chuckled with a disapproving expression. "You." Di Ren was furious. He kept breathing heavily again. "Calm down, don't get angry, and don't faint. You have to refine more weapons for me later," Lung Ruoxue reminded. At the same time, Lung Ruoxue saw that most of the people around her were here. So she calmly announced an important piece of news. "Everyone, from today onwards, the price of refining weapons for everyone will be 30% off. So, if any of you want to refine weapons, you have to hurry up. Of course, you can make an appointment in advance. In short, don't let go of this good opportunity." Really? How could such a good thing happen? It's not a lie, is it? As soon as Lung Ruoxue finished speaking, the onlookers started discussing. Among these people, there were artifact masters and representatives of the various families who came to participate in the artifact master competition. However, they were obviously suspicious of what Lung Ruoxue said. Everyone, of course it's true. Because His Excellency Di Ren owes a huge debt, he had no choice but to do this. I hope that if anyone wants to refine weapons, remember to come to him. Lung Ruoxue reminded with a smile. Everyone can start making appointments now. It's only for a month. This is a rare opportunity. Lung Ruoxue added. "I want to make an appointment. I don't know where to sign up," someone in the crowd suddenly asked. "Sign up with this guard." Lung Ruoxue pointed at a guard. "Just give my little beast the deposit." Lung Ruoxue pointed at the baby in her arms and took out a recliner for the baby to sit on. Yes. Sign up at his place first, and then come to me to pay," Darling said excitedly. It liked collecting money the most. Besides, it was collecting money for its own family. As soon as Darling finished speaking, someone went to the guards to register. Once someone took the lead in such a matter, the enthusiasm of the others would also be aroused. In just a moment, the people who wanted to make an appointment to refine weapons had surrounded the guards. As for Darling, its mouth was agape as it accepted wads of cash. I really didn't expect you to be so popular. Lung Ruoxue looked at Di-Run, who was so angry that he couldn't speak, and teased him softly. Di-Run opened his mouth to speak, but no words came out. He could only stare. Don't glare at me. I'm scared. Lung Ruoxue smiled evilly. At this moment, a middle-aged man who had just signed up and paid the deposit came to Lung Ruoxue and Di-Run and asked politely, I wonder when I can get the equipment I want. That depends on His Excellency Di-Run's efficiency. However, as long as the materials you prepared are complete, Sir Di-Run will definitely not disappoint you. Lung Ruoxue comforted. Hehe. Of course I know His Excellency Di-Run's strength. I'll wait in Flame City then. After the middle-aged man finished speaking, he bowed slightly and turned to leave. It was not until noon that the enthusiasm of those who wanted to make an appointment to refine weapons faded a little. After hearing Darling's report on the amount of deposit made, Lung Ruoxue couldn't help but be a little speechless. The fees of this artificer was so expensive. Even though she only received a deposit, it was nearly 1,000,000 superior-grade crystals. It was really too shady. No wonder people said that artificers and alchemists couldn't be offended. However, Lung Ruoxue was in an exceptionally good mood to receive so much deposit, so her attitude towards Di-Run was naturally much better. When she carried him back to the Artificer Association, she specially instructed the butler to find a stretcher. After returning to the Artificer Association, Lung Ruoxue brought Di-Run to the refining room that was temporarily built for him, and wrote down the details of the person who made the appointment for him. She reminded him to do as he pleased, and then left. In the president's office of the Artificer Association, President Lu looked at Yao Yuan, who was sitting opposite him, with a worried expression. His heart was in a mess. Boo, he was done for. He had actually chased Mo Yan's disciple out of Flame City, and even announced that no artificer was allowed to refine weapons for them in the future. Ever since he found out the identities of those people, he knew that he had made a fool of himself. If Mo Yan knew about this, he would probably not let him off. That was why he came to discuss countermeasures with Yao Yuan. However, seeing Yao Yuan's indifferent attitude, his heart turned cold. President, you have to help me, President Lu said anxiously. He was not like Yao Yuan, who had someone backing him up. Yao Yuan was the one who had raised him to where he was today. Therefore, if anything happened, he naturally hoped that Yao Yuan could protect him. This matter. There's nothing I can do, Yao Yuan said with a headache. President Lu was his subordinate. If he could help him, why would he not? Unfortunately, he could not even protect himself now. How could he care about others? President Lu refused to give up, and continued to beg. Let me be alone. Or you can go straight to Miss Lung and admit your mistake. Perhaps she will be lenient, Yao Yuan suggested. In that case, I'll go find Miss Lung, President Lu said helplessly. By the way, have you found the whereabouts of Lung Xiaoyu and the others? Yao Yuan asked again. Not yet. They seem to have vanished into thin air. The people I sent couldn't find them at all, President Lu replied, looking slightly disappointed. Chapter 997. Lu Feng's Stand 3. President, I'll go out first. With that, President Lu left the president's office. After leaving the president's office, President Lu went straight to Lung Ruoxue's residence. At this moment, Lung Ruoxue was sitting on a recliner in the courtyard and basking in the sun. Di-Ren's butler stood at the side and reported Di-Ren's every move to her respectfully. Miss Lung, the equipment that has been refined, do you think? The butler wanted to say something but hesitated. According to tradition, after his master refined the equipment, he would inform the owner to come and collect it. However, Miss Lung was in charge of everything in the Di family now, so he wanted to ask Lung Ruoxue how to deal with the completed equipment. Go inform the owners to come and collect the ones that have been refined. Remember to ask them to bring the rest of the money. I don't allow anything to be put on tab, Lung Ruoxue reminded. Yes. the butler replied quickly. He was about to turn around and leave when he suddenly saw President Lu standing outside the courtyard. Miss Lung, President Lu is here, the butler reminded her quietly. Okay, let him in. Go do what you need to do, Lung Ruoxue said after some thought. The butler nodded and left the courtyard. Miss Lung. President Lu walked up to Lung Ruoxue and bowed. Is President Lu looking for me? Lung Ruoxue asked. Miss Lung, I'm sorry for not knowing your identities. I'm here today to apologize, President Lu said without beating around the bush. Isn't it a little too serious to apologize? President Lu is also doing your duty, Lung Ruoxue said nonchalantly. However, President Lu, who was old and shrewd, knew very well that she was just being polite to him. He couldn't ignore it. Miss Lung, I've already sent someone to invite His Excellency Lung Xiaoyu back to the Flame City. I believe there will be good news soon. At that time, I will officially apologize to everyone. President Lu sighed and continued helplessly. Are you able to find them? Lung Ruoxue raised her eyebrows lightly. I haven't found them yet. I hope Miss Lung can give me some pointers, President Lu said sincerely. I wouldn't dare give you pointers, but I suggest you don't look for them. Even if you find them, they won't come back, Lung Ruoxue suggested. Miss Lung. President Lu wanted to continue explaining, but Lung Ruoxue interrupted him. President Lu, you don't have much responsibility in this matter. However, if you want to take the blame for someone else, I won't stop you. Lung Ruoxue chuckled. That's all I have to say. Take care, President Lu. Lung Ruoxue said again. Then, she stood up from the recliner and returned to her room. After hearing Lung Ruoxue's words, President Lu stood alone in the courtyard for a long time before leaving with heavy steps. In the room, Lung Ruoxue had been observing the movements in the courtyard with Darling in her arms. After President Lu left, Darling couldn't help but ask curiously, Cute master, will this old man betray that pig? Haha, that depends on what he thinks. Lung Ruoxue said disapprovingly. Little girl, you're so scheming. Suddenly, a teasing voice sounded in Lung Ruoxue and Darling's ears. Then an extremely handsome young man appeared in front of her. Who are you? Lung Ruoxue narrowed her beautiful eyes and sized up the uninvited man. The man in front of her was handsome and had an extraordinary temperament. His strength was unfathomable, so Lung Ruoxue easily guessed that this guy should be from the God realm. I am Lu Feng, the man said with a faint smile. Lu Feng? I don't know you, Lung Ruoxue said honestly. What about Mo Yan? Do you know him? Lu Feng asked gloomily. This little girl had never heard of his name. She was too ignorant. No, Lung Ruoxue said honestly. Oh, hearing Lung Ruoxue say that she didn't know Mo Yan, Lu Feng immediately felt better. Are you here to watch the show or here to look for me? Lung Ruoxue asked bluntly. Haha, little girl, you're really impatient. Lu Feng laughed. If you have something to say it. If you're going to fart away. I'm going to rest soon, Lung Ruoxue said impatiently. This man had probably watched a joke for a long time. It was probably nothing good for him to appear now, so she treated him like a fly. Little girl, how can you say such vulgar words to a handsome man like me? Shouldn't women behave well in front of men like me? Lu Feng's face was full of question marks. Well, this little girl was really different. He liked her. Another narcissist. Lung Ruoxue rolled her eyes and said speechlessly, Are you calling me narcissistic? Lu Feng's eyes widened in disbelief. Yes, and not just any narcissist, Lung Ruoxue said with certainty. Why are you looking for me? Lung Ruoxue asked again. Can't I look for you for no reason? What if I say I just want to chat with you? Lu Feng probed. However, the disdainful expression on Lung Ruoxue's face deeply hurt his fragile pride. Are you very free? Lung Ruoxue said speechlessly, but she kept sighing in her heart. Sigh. She didn't expect such a handsome man to be mentally unstable. What a pity. Yes, have a chat with me. Lu Feng nodded matter-of-factly. But I'm very busy and don't have time to chat with you. Lung Ruoxue refused without giving him face. To be precise, she was not interested in chatting with a strange man who came out of nowhere. If the freak found out, he would probably ask for compensation again. What are you busy with? Lu Feng was puzzled. This girl was probably busy messing with him. He had observed her for a long time, but he had never seen her busy. I'm busy plotting against others, eating and sleeping, Lung Ruoxue said after some thought. That counts? Lu Feng was speechless because he suddenly realized that this little girl was very difficult to deal with. Yes, I want to rest now, so you can leave. Moreover, trespassing a girl's boudoir is very bad behavior. Lung Ruoxue warned very seriously. Chapter 998. Lu Feng stand for. You mean next time I should knock? Said Lu Feng, playing dumb. Not should, but must, Lung Ruoxue corrected. Oh. Then I'll knock next time. You can chat with me this time. Lu Feng said shamelessly. Even when he heard Lung Ruoxue say that she wanted to rest, he actually had no intention of leaving. What do you want to talk about? Lung Ruoxue was helpless. Now she was completely sure that this man did it on purpose. Let's talk about your opinion of the Artificer Association of the Flame City. Lu Feng said curiously. This association isn't mine, so what can my opinions matter? Besides, so what if I have an opinion? Will the president of the Artificer Association headquarters listen to me? Lung Ruoxue asked. That's hard to say, Lu Feng said mysteriously. Do you think I'm as gullible as a 3-year-old child? Everyone in the God realm knows that the president of the Artificer Association headquarters has been in seclusion. The association headquarters is managed by the 3 vice presidents. Lung Ruoxue said with a faint smile. Of course, this information was from the cheap sake old ancestor. Would you believe me if I said I was one of the 3 vice presidents? Lu Feng asked with a smirk. Is it important whether I believe it or not? Lung Ruoxue was a little puzzled. What did this man want? Yes, little girl. I know you want to make matters big, but without my help, I'm afraid you'll encounter a lot of trouble. Therefore, let's cooperate. Lu Feng said with anticipation. How do you want to cooperate? Lung Ruoxue's interest was piqued. Hee. How could she let go of such a good thing? Moreover, working with him was much better than looking for Mo Yen. After all, Mo Yen was the master of her cheap sake old ancestor. If they dragged Mo Yen into this, they would probably be accused of abusing his authority. However, this man was different because he did not have any relationship with them. Of course, we have to find a suitable opportunity to get rid of Yao Yuan and the others. Lu Feng said softly. Are you really the vice president of the association headquarters? Lung Ruoxue was skeptical after hearing Lu Feng's words. Of course. Little girl, no one in the God realm dares to impersonate me. Don't worry. Besides, I have a token of proof, Lu Feng promised. After saying that, he took out a golden token from his ring to increase his credibility. Since you're the vice president of the headquarters, wouldn't it be easy to replace Yao Yuan? Is there a need to go through so much trouble? Lung Ruoxue asked curiously. You know that I'm not the only vice president of the headquarters. In fact, during the president's seclusion, the 3 of us took turns managing the headquarters. Now, it just so happens that another vice president is managing it. And this Yao Yuan is her man. Therefore, unless Yao Yuan has made some irreparable mistake, neither Mo Yen nor I can replace him at will. Lu Feng explained. Oh. In that case, what kind of mistake can be considered an irreparable mistake? Lung Ruoxue asked curiously. All of what he did to you could be included, but that alone isn't enough, Lu Feng reminded them. You mean you want that pig to fall out with his backer? Lung Ruoxue probed. Haha. Little girl, you're really smart. You understood immediately. Lu Feng smiled happily. It was so convenient to talk to smart people. I can't do anything about that. I don't know his backer and don't know how to make them fall out. Lung Ruoxue said helplessly. Little girl, that vice president is a woman, Lu Feng reminded her with a faint smile. Then I have no choice. You'd better find a man. When Lung Ruoxue heard that the other party was a woman, she did not want to bother with this woman at all. Little girl, what I want to say is that Yao Yuan has intentions on you, and she values Yao Yuan very much. Therefore, you don't have to specially deal with her. I'm afraid she won't let you off after knowing this, Lu Feng explained. You mean? Lung Ruoxue was furious when she understood what Lu Feng meant. Damn it, why did people always like to find her for such things? Who did she provoke? Little girl, you don't have to worry with me around. I won't let her hurt you, Lu Feng promised. I hate trouble, Lung Ruoxue said gloomily. Haha, you won't be able to avoid such trouble. However, you don't have to worry too much. I won't sit by and let her bully the younger generation, Lu Feng said, wishing for the world to be in chaos. Since I can't avoid this trouble, you just have to sit this one out and reap the spoils later. But you want to cooperate with me. What benefits can you? Lung Ruoxue asked suspiciously. Haha, I don't need any benefits. I want to make my stand clear. Little girl, I'm on your side. So you don't have to be afraid when facing that old woman. Lu Feng smiled. To him, being able to replace Yao Yuan was the greatest benefit. Therefore, he didn't mind pouring some oil on the other party's fire. Chapter 999, Certification 1. After Lung Ruoxue heard Lu Feng's words, she chose to be skeptical of his words. After all, with Lu Feng's identity and status, he was willing to help a nobody like her selflessly. This really made people suspect his motive. Of course, it could not be ruled out that Lu Feng himself had a personality of wanting to see the world in chaos. However, at least, she would not completely believe him now. Oh, after some thought, Lung Ruoxue gave Lu Feng a faint reaction. Why are you so calm, little girl? I've already said so much. Is that all the reaction from you? Lu Feng asked gloomily. He did not expect that he would not be trusted when he took the initiative to express his goodwill. This really hurt his pride. What else do you want me to do? I came to Flame City happily, and my family is also preparing to participate in the artificer competition. However, I encountered so many troublesome matters just after entering the city for 2 days. Do you think I should have any good impression of your artificer association? Lung Ruoxue asked with a faint smile. If it weren't for the fact that she was being considerate of the cheap sake old ancestor, none of these fellows from the Artificer Association would be able to live so well. Didn't you already start earning money from D-Run? Lu Feng reminded. That's what he owes us. But what about your Artificer Association? Don't you have anything to say? Lung Ruoxue said unhappily. Then what do you want us to do? Lu Feng pretended to be stupid again. Even though you claim that you're cooperating and will stand on my side, in reality, you just want to use me to get rid of Yao Yuan. In that case, you have to pay some compensation. Also, my ancestor and the others were chased out of Flame City. You have to give me an explanation, right? If you can't satisfy me, then I'd rather leave Flame City now. As for Yao Yuan, I'll let him off easy, Lung Ruoxue said with a light smile. What she meant by letting Yao Yuan off easy was that she wouldn't pursue this matter anymore. However, this was only on the surface. As for whether she would find an opportunity in private, that was hard to say. Little girl, the Artificer Association doesn't belong to me alone. Why are you looking for me for these things? Lu Feng was a little depressed. This little girl was really difficult to deal with. Originally, he thought that as long as he made his stand clear, this girl would be very grateful to him. But now he realized that he was overthinking. This girl didn't take his words seriously at all. You were the one who came to me. If I didn't look for you, who would I look for? If my ancestor's master came to me first, then he would have to do these things. But now, naturally, you have to do it for me. Lung Ruoxue smiled evilly. Haha, she wasn't so easily schemed against. Alright then, what reward do you want? Lu Feng asked carefully. At this moment, he had already raised Lung Ruoxue to the level of a little fox, so he naturally wouldn't lower his guard. This is all the remuneration and compensation I want. Lung Ruoxue smiled faintly, then took out a piece of paper full of words from the bracelet and handed it to Lu Feng. You were prepared long ago? Lu Feng took the paper with a face full of suspicion. However, when he saw the content of the paper, he was a little dumbfounded. This was really too ruthless. Of course. Why do you think I'm so quiet? Lung Ruoxue said with a smile. In fact, she had been waiting for someone to take the initiative to come to her. She originally thought it would be Mo Yen, but she didn't expect there to be an unexpected surprise. There are too many of these things. I can make the decision for some of them, but I can't decide on some of them alone. Lu Feng hesitated. It's okay. You can discuss it with His Excellency Mo Yen. If you really can't, you can add another vice president. Anyway, that's all my conditions. If you agree, I'll let bygones be bygones. If you don't agree, then the Artificer Association will have nothing to do with us in the future. It's not impossible to become enemies, Lung Ruoxue said half-jokingly. Little girl, are you threatening me? Lu Feng said helplessly. I don't think it counts, but it doesn't matter if you think it counts. Actually, money is an external object. I don't want much of these things. The Artificer Association can definitely afford it, so don't be poor with me. I don't have any sympathy, Lung Ruoxue reminded. Sigh. I'll take my leave first. Lu Feng sighed softly and said helplessly. After saying that, he disappeared into thin air. Mo Yan's residence. Mo Yan was sitting alone in the room drinking tea, but he had a thoughtful expression on his face. When Lu Feng pushed open the door and entered, he happened to see Mo Yan like this. He couldn't help but tease. What are you thinking about? Nothing. Why did you suddenly come to my room? Mo Yan asked in confusion. Lu Feng had never liked to go to other people's rooms. For a matter. After saying that, Lu Feng threw a piece of paper at Mo Yan and found a random place to sit down. What is this? Why do you suddenly want so many things? Mo Yan picked up the paper and looked at it, asking in confusion. This is not what I want. It's the reward and compensation requested by your disciple's good descendant. Lu Feng said angrily. So many. Mo Yan said calmly. Why is your reaction? Don't tell me you already knew about it. Lu Feng roared angrily. I don't know, but when I contacted Xiaoyu just now, he told me some things. He even said that he had already handed this matter to little Shuer to handle. Only if his precious little Shuer is satisfied will he be willing to enter Flame City. Otherwise, he asked me to take it that I don't have him as a disciple. Mo Yan said sadly. Boo-hoo. His disciple was going to abandon him. That serious? He doesn't even give you face as his master? Lu Feng didn't expect Lung Xiaoyu to say such words and couldn't help but be a little surprised. Sigh. It's all because I'm useless as his master. Not only did he not gain any benefits as my disciple, but he's also always implicated by me. Now even the house I gave him has been occupied by someone. He was even chased out of Flame City and the Artificer Association. However, as his master, I can't do anything because of my status. Mo Yan said pitifully with tears in his eyes. However, from the corner of his eye, he kept stealing glances at Lu Feng from time to time. He kept shouting in his heart, Agree. Agree. Chapter 1000. Certification 2. Actually, after seeing what was written on that piece of paper, he really wanted to add some more. In any case, the Artificer Association had plenty of money, and the benefits did not go to outsiders. It was better to enter his disciple's pocket than to let others benefit. Then what should we do now? Lu Feng asked without any idea. He knew that Mo Yan never lied, so he trusted Mo Yan's words very much. I don't know either. Even though these things are a little too much, it's not like the Artificer Association can't afford them. Mo Yan said softly. Even if I agree, I'm afraid that bitch won't agree. Lu Feng reminded helplessly. You will really agree? Mo Yan asked tentatively. What else can we do? Are we really going to watch you be abandoned by your disciple? Lu Feng said speechlessly. He and Mo Yan had always been on the same side, and he had thought very highly of Lung Xiaoyu back then. However, Mo Yan had gotten her first. Therefore, even though he felt a little regretful, he would not drag Mo Yan down. Lu Feng, you're really my good brother, Mo Yan said emotionally, his eyes filled with gratitude. All right. Don't be mushy with me. Even if I have no objections to this matter, I'm afraid that woman. Lu Feng only said half of his sentence. However, he believed that Mo Yan would understand. She's nothing to be afraid of, Mo Yin said confidently. In fact, he had never taken that woman seriously. Therefore, he fundamentally felt that it was enough as long as Lu Feng agreed to this matter. However, he did not expect that Lu Feng would actually surrender after he pretended to be pitiful. Hee. What a good brother. You have an idea? Lu Feng asked curiously. I guess so. Mo Yin smiled mysteriously. TSK still keeping it a secret. Lu Feng pursed his lips and said unhappily. You'll know. Mo Yin smiled happily. By the way, I received news that the woman should arrive in 2 days, Lu Feng reminded. What he meant was that if Mo Yin wanted to do anything, he had to do it as soon as possible. Yes. Mo Yin nodded. The next day, there was a huge upheaval in the Artificer Association in Flame City. Other than Di Run, the other branch led by Yao Yuan was all locked up by Mo Yin. When Mo Yin and Lu Feng arrived at the dungeon, Yao Yuan kept shouting at them. Sir Mo Yin, Sir Lu Feng, may I ask what mistake I made? Why did you lock me up? Yao Yuan pretended to be puzzled and asked. Yao Yuan, you've been managing Flame City for decades, right? Look at what the current Flame City has become because of you. The 3 of us vice presidents take this artificer competition very seriously, but what about you? What did you do? You didn't allow a large group of people to enter the city and created a commotion at the city gate, bringing an extremely bad impact to the reputation of Flame City. For many years, Flame City has been under your control and managed by your trusted subordinates. This also caused Flame City to have no development. This is all your negligence as the president. Lu Feng's cold voice entered Yao Yuan's ears softly, making Yao Yuan tremble in fear. Also, you actually arranged for Leng Xiaoyu's residence to be given to someone else. That house was given to his disciple by His Excellency Mo Yin, who gave you the guts to deal with it on his behalf. In addition, you took the initiative to expel an artificer without reporting it. This is an unforgivable crime. Lu Feng continued to recount Yao Yuan's crimes. That has nothing to do with me. I didn't know that house belonged to Leng Xiaoyu. I thought it was an empty house. Otherwise, why would I let Diren stay in it? Moreover, I wasn't the one who asked Leng Xiaoyu to be expelled. You really can't blame me. Yao Yuan explained while crying. Don't quibble. After you made changes at the Artificer Association, you can't escape this responsibility no matter what happens to the Artificer Association, or if you personally gave the order. Lu Feng said coldly. That's right. Also, don't say that you don't know that house belongs to Leng Xiaoyu. We're not fools. We all know what exactly happened. We definitely won't malign you. Mo Yin said indifferently after listening for a while. Sir Mo Yin, let me explain. Yao Yuan hurriedly said. There's no need to explain. We don't have time to listen to your flowery words. After Mo Yin finished speaking, he gave Lu Feng a look and the 2 of them left the dungeon. After leaving the dungeon, Mo Yin said to Lu Feng. I'll go see that little girl. You can go back first. That girl is a little fox. She's very cunning, Lu Feng complained. Haha, I know. Mo Yin went straight to Leng Ruoxia's residence. At this moment, Leng Ruoxia was checking Di Ren's produces in the refining room. After seeing Di Ren's helpless and resigned work performance, she couldn't help but nod in satisfaction and praise. Old man Di Ren, according to your current work efficiency, you should be able to repay the money you owe me within 1,000 years. 1,000 years. Di Ren, who was refining weapons, almost vomited blood when he heard that. Fuck. Could it be that he had to work hard to refine weapons for this little girl for 1,000 years? Ooh. Why was he so unlucky? If he had known this would happen, he wouldn't have stayed in that house even if he was beaten to death. Unfortunately, there was no medicine for regret in this world, especially when he met Leng Ruoxia. This was destined to make him spend the rest of his life refining weapons. Focus. If you spoil these materials, you'll need to compensate me. Leng Ruoxia felt the fluctuation in Di Ren's emotions and couldn't help but remind him. Compensate my ass. Dijiu couldn't help but curse. He had never heard that an artificer needed to compensate if the materials were spoilt. It had to be known that the success rate was not 100% regardless of whether it was refining pills or weapons. Therefore, anyone who wanted to refine would prepare more materials. Moreover, as long as they could refine what they wanted, it was enough. As for what the additional materials would be, it was not within their consideration. Of course you have to compensate. You're working for me now, so the materials they bring over will be mine if there's any left. So, if you want to use another portion, you can only buy it from me. Well, I mean, add on to the debt you owe me. Lung Ruoxue explained with a light smile. Chapter 1001. Authentication 3. You black-hearted vampire. Dirun was furious. This girl was so beautiful, but why was her heart so black? Not only did she treat him as free labor, but she even wanted to squeeze his blood, sweat and tears. How detestable. Hee. Thank you for the compliment, Lung Ruoxue said calmly. With that, she turned around and left Ren's refining room. When she returned to the room, she suddenly realized that there was an uninvited guest in the room. Lung Ruoxue raised her beautiful eyes and sized up the handsome black-clothed man in front of her. If she guessed correctly, this man should be the master of the cheap sake old ancestor, Mo Yen. In terms of temperament, this Sir Mo Yen was quite similar to her cheap sake old ancestor. Apart from his handsome appearance, his temperament was equally cold, giving people the feeling that it was not easy to get close to him. However, she did not know what the real Mo Yen was like. While Lung Ruoxue was sizing up Mo Yen was also observing Lung Ruoxue. Even though this wasn't the first time he saw this little girl, Lung Ruoxue left a deep impression on him. After a while, Mo Yen nodded in satisfaction. It was rare that this little fellow was not afraid of him, and even dared to openly size him up. It had been a long time since he met such an interesting little girl. Mo Yen introduced himself. Lung Ruoxue replied politely. Little girl, your old ancestor called me master. What should you call me? Mo Yen teased. You're my cheap sake old ancestor's master, not mine, so of course I should call you Mo Yen. Lung Ruoxue said with a faint smile. Little girl, my seniority should be higher, right? Mo Yen said gloomily. He originally wanted to tease this little girl, but this cunning little guy actually didn't fall for it. Could it be that you want to use your seniority to suppress me? Lung Ruoxue widened her beautiful eyes and asked uncertainly. Of course not. Mo Yen was very helpless. Alas, Lu Feng was right. This girl was a cunning little fox. Then you're just Mo Yen in my eyes, Lung Ruoxue said seriously. You have to call me your Excellency Mo Yen at least, right? Mo Yen refused to give up. I'm not asking you to refine weapons. Lung Ruoxue rolled her eyes at Mo Yen and said truthfully. This time, Mo Yen really had nothing to say. Moreover, he could tell what this little girl meant. That girl was clearly saying that only those who looked for him to refine artifacts would call him his excellency, and that she wouldn't ask him for help. Little girl, you know how to refine weapons, right? Mo Yen probed. He could feel that Lung Ruoxue had an extremely strong fire attribute spiritual energy on her. In addition, he was Lung Xiaoyu's descendant, so he naturally guessed that this girl should know how to refine weapons. I know a little, Lung Ruoxue said humbly. She usually focused on refining pills and rarely refined weapons. Do you little one have any plans to become a disciple? Mo Yen asked again. No. Lung Ruoxue was very honest. In fact, she didn't want to look for a master because she had a master. Moreover, it was good to say that she was narcissistic. Anyway, she never felt that anyone could compare to her master who had already passed away. Oh, some of you want to participate in the artificer competition, right? Mo Yen continued. That's right. However, they've already been chased out of Flame City. They probably won't have the chance to participate in the competition. Lung Ruoxue also played Taiji and repeated the well-known truth. Who said there's no chance? I approve his participation in the competition. If you want to participate, I can also arrange it for you. Mo Yen said very enthusiastically. In fact, he mainly wanted to see this little girl's refining level, because he didn't believe what Lung Ruoxue said about knowing just a little. I'm not interested. As for the old ancestor and the others, They have already been expelled from Flame City. Even though this matter won't spread throughout the entire Divine Continente, even the God Realm so quickly, the people in Flame City must have already known. So, how can they return so easily? We have to give them and the people in the city an explanation. Lung Ruoxue said calmly. Yes, you're right. Lu Feng and I have already agreed to the compensation you requested. However, there are a total of 3 vice presidents, so we have to respect the opinion of the other vice president. But the problem probably won't be big. Mo Yin gave Lung Ruoxue a reassuring look. So you can't get the compensation I requested? Lung Ruoxue asked with a faint smile. Not yet. However, I can guarantee that I will definitely give it to you. Therefore, you can let them return to Flame City first, Mo Yin reminded. In fact, this was the main reason why he came to look for this girl. This was because his disciple had said that Little Schwer would be in charge of this matter. Unless Little Schwer said something, they would not return. What if they come back and you renege on your debt? Besides, you haven't given me an explanation. If you want us to leave, we have to leave immediately. If you want us to come back, we have to come back immediately. What do you take us for? Lung Ruoxue said unhappily. Little girl, don't you even believe my words? With me around, will the Artificer Association dare to renege on your debt? Mo Yin was very helpless. This girl was very difficult to deal with. I'm sorry, we're not familiar. Grandpa said it before, but I easily believe the words of strangers. Moreover, you can't make the decision alone in the Artificer Association, so I have a reserved attitude towards your words. Lung Ruoxue was very honest, but the unlucky Lung Qingtian was shot again. Mo Yin was a little speechless. It seemed that this girl was unmoved by force or persuasion. Unless he immediately took out compensation, he was afraid that he wouldn't be able to convince her. So, you're right. I really can't make the decision alone. How about this? I'll discuss it with Lu Feng and will give you an answer as soon as possible. Mo Yin said helplessly. You have to be fast. Lung Ruoxue reminded with a naughty smile. Okay. Mo Yin nodded and then disappeared into thin air. Mo Yin returned to his room gloomily. As soon as he walked in, he discovered a familiar aura in his room. Chapter 1002, Authentication 4. Why are you here? Mo Yin looked speechlessly at Lu Feng, who was lying on his bed and stuffing fruits into his mouth. I'm waiting for you. From the looks of it, you should have returned empty-handed. Lu Feng said knowingly. Hee. That little girl was cunning. How could she follow their thoughts? That's right. That girl said that she was afraid that we would go back on our word, so she refused to let Xiao Yu and the others come back first. Mo Yin said simply. Hee. She doesn't even believe your words? Lu Feng said with a smile in a good mood. The depression he got from Lung Ruoxue yesterday was completely swept away. She said that we're not close. Her grandfather doesn't let her believe the words of strangers. Mo Yin explained. Haha. Haha. After hearing Mo Yin's words, Lu Feng laughed wildly without caring about his image. Is it that funny? Mo Yin was speechless. This guy's laughter was too exaggerated. He was just short of rolling on the ground. Yes. Of course. Lu Feng said with a smile. Stop laughing. Tell me what to do. Mo Yin's head hurt. Then give her the compensation she wants first. Lu Feng said disapprovingly. The Fire City Blacksmith Guild could take out the things Lung Ruoxue wanted, but after compensating this little girl, the Fire City Blacksmith Guild would probably be greatly injured. However, this was not within his consideration. Anyway, the Blacksmith Guild was not under his control now. Thinking of this, he could not help but gloat. Moreover, he had to act first and report later. Otherwise, it would not be easy to take out those things when that woman came. You have no objections? Mo Yin asked in disbelief. I already agreed. Lu Feng blinked and said in confusion. In that case, let's give it to that little girl now. Mo Yin said anxiously. In fact, he was also afraid that a long delay would cause trouble. Moreover, that woman should arrive tomorrow. At that time, he would probably have to waste his breath. Therefore, if he could settle the compensation immediately, he would be happy to do so. Yes. Lu Feng nodded. Then, the two of them personally went to the guild's storeroom and took out everything Lung Ruoxue requested. Then they sent it to her directly. Little fox. Are you satisfied now? In Lung Ruoxue's room, Lu Feng's handsome face was filled with helplessness. I'm very satisfied with your work efficiency, Lung Ruoxue said very calmly after checking the things in the storage ring. Then you can let them come back now. Lu Feng said again. Sure, but they were chased out of Flame City after all, so even if they come back, they have to have a good reason. They can't come back for no reason. Lung Ruoxue thought for a while and said, Little fox. What do you mean? We've already given you the compensation you requested. Don't tell me you want to go back on your word. Lu Feng was a little angry. This girl could definitely anger people to death. I won't go back on my word. However, even though you've paid for the mental damage, their crimes haven't been cleared. So, wouldn't it be unreasonable for them to come back now? Lung Ruoxue said innocently. Girl, don't play dumb with us. What do you want? Just say it. Mo Yin said with a headache. My ancestor and the others were chased out by your Artificer Association. Of course, the people from the Artificer Association have to invite them back respectfully and announce to the public that this is your guild's responsibility. We are all victims, Lung Ruoxue continued with a light smile. All right, I'll personally go outside the city to welcome Xiaoyu and the others into the city. Lu Feng, I'll have to trouble you to announce this to the public. Our Artificer Association is brave enough to admit our mistakes. We can't be looked down upon by a little girl. Mo Yin said directly without thinking. Okay. Lu Feng also knew that Lung Ruoxue clearly didn't believe that the Artificer Association could handle this matter impartially with such conditions. Therefore, as one of the big shots of the guild, he naturally wouldn't allow a little girl to look down on their guild. You can announce this to the public, but it won't be your honor to invite the old ancestor and the others, Lung Ruoxue said with a smile. Girl, what do you mean? Mo Yin asked in confusion. President Liu, who chased us out of Flame City, isn't one of you, so you can't do this, Lung Ruoxue explained with a faint smile. Don't tell me you want Yao Yuan to invite someone. Lu Feng said speechlessly. Was Yao Yuan's status higher than theirs? Mo Yin wanted to personally bring him in, but this girl actually didn't agree. Is he worthy? Lung Ruoxue said disdainfully. Then you want. Lu Feng understood. He didn't expect this girl to have this idea. She really had guts. Little swear, she won't agree. That person wants to save face. If you let her do this, she won't let you off. Mo Yin also understood and couldn't help persuading. If I don't let her do it, won't she find trouble with me? Lung Ruoxue asked. In fact, she had thought about this for almost an entire night and had analyzed it with the freak, so there was no need to hold a grudge if there were too many debts. In any case, the grudge was bound to be settled, so why care about one more? The two of them were a little speechless. In fact, they knew that Lung Ruoxue was right. With that woman's personality, even if this little girl gave in, that person would probably not let go. However, they did not expect Lung Ruoxue to be willing to face the difficulties. Her courage was really commendable. Little swear, that woman will be here tomorrow. Mo Yin reminded her, wanting her to be careful. That's good. Let her pick someone up when she comes tomorrow. Lung Ruoxue chuckled. All right. We'll talk to her, Lu Feng said with a soft sigh. He could already foresee the woman's anger tomorrow. The next day, Lung Ruoxue was lying on a recliner in the garden with a treasure in her arms, basking in the sun. Suddenly, her vision was blocked by a dark red color. Lung Ruoxue raised her eyelids slightly and looked at the angry woman in front of her. Then she turned around and ignored her. Chapter 1003. Authentication 5. Actually, Lung Ruoxue didn't need to guess to know who the woman in front of her was and her purpose for coming to her. However, Lung Ruoxue didn't intend to pay attention to her. Damn it, where did this wild girl come from? She actually doesn't know the rules. The woman couldn't help but roar angrily when she saw that the little girl in front of her actually ignored her and only gave her a back view. Auntie, this is my residence. You barged in without knocking, and you're still blaming Master for not knowing the rules? What's going on? Lung Ruoxue sneered. Damn it, do you know who I am? How dare you talk to me like that? The woman roared in anger. I don't know, and am not interested in knowing, Lung Ruoxue said angrily. You. The woman's pretty face twisted in anger. Auntie, you should explain why you're here. I'm not interested in guessing, Lung Ruoxue reminded. You're calling me auntie? The woman said belatedly. Yes. Lung Ruoxue nodded. Damn girl, how dare you call me auntie? The woman was so angry that her magnificent chest kept shaking. Was that too young for you? Lung Ruoxue looked suspicious. She wanted to call this woman grandma, but she was afraid that her grandfather would be unhappy. You. The woman was angry, so angry she couldn't speak. Auntie, calm down. I suggest you explain your intentions first. Otherwise, I'm afraid you won't have the chance to say it later. Lung Ruoxue reminded again. Well said, the woman said fiercely. She had decided that when this matter was settled, she would get rid of this young girl who had dared to humiliate her. I order you to let Lung Xiaoyu and the others enter the city immediately. Otherwise, bear the consequences. The woman ordered arrogantly and condescendingly. After Lung Ruoxue heard this woman's words, she sized up the woman in surprise and even disbelief. She couldn't help but ask, May I know what identity auntie is using to order me? Because I'm the vice president of the association headquarters, the woman said proudly. What does that have to do with me? I'm not from your artificer association. You can't order me, right? Besides, my ancestor has already been chased out by you. If you want him to come back, you have to invite him personally. Lung Ruoxue said this fact with a faint smile. Who is Lung Xiaoyu? What right does he have for me to personally invite him back? The woman said angrily. It's your freedom to invite him or not. Anyway, I'm not the one who chased him away. Lung Ruoxue shrugged and said disapprovingly. With Mo Yan and Lu Feng pressuring this woman, she didn't believe that this woman wouldn't invite someone. Let me ask you, where is Lung Xiaoyu now? The woman calmed down and suppressed her anger. I don't know. It should be somewhere outside the city. Lung Ruoxue said indifferently. Go look for them yourself. They shouldn't have gone too far, Lung Ruoxue added. I know, the woman said angrily, then turned and left. Seeing the woman leave, Darling couldn't help but ask curiously. Cute master, why did she leave so quickly? Why? You can't bear for her to leave? Lung Ruoxue stroked the fur on her darling's body and teased. Of course not. I thought she would kill you in anger. That way, I would have a chance to protect you. Darling said with a look of yearning. You little rascal, you only know how to stir up trouble. Lung Ruoxue flicked Darling's head with her finger and said helplessly. Sigh. It seemed that her beasts had been bored recently. Lovely master, am very obedient, Darling said with an aggrieved expression. Yes. You're very obedient. How can my beast not be obedient? Lung Ruoxue coaxed. Yes, lovely master, don't be afraid. We won't let that old woman hurt you. Darling raised his claws and promised. All right. I'll be waiting for your protection. Lung Ruoxue said cooperatively. The man and the beast chatted like this, and the day passed quickly. In the evening, Lung Ruoxue finally saw the freak and the others again. They were also arranged to stay here. In the room, the freak hugged Lung Ruoxue and rubbed his face against Schwer's. He kept telling her how much he missed her. Schwer, I miss you so much, the freak said with tears in his eyes. I miss you too. Lung Ruoxue was very cooperative. In fact, they were in contact every day. However, at this time, she naturally couldn't ruin the atmosphere. You'll have to make it up to me, Schwer, the freak said with a wicked grin. Actually, that was his main goal. Okay. Lung Ruoxue was helpless and could only bring the freak into the bracelet. The next day, Lung Ruoxue had just walked out of the room when she met Mo Yan and Lu Feng in the courtyard. You're a little early. Lung Ruoxue looked at the two people in front of her and asked in confusion. Authentication. We're here to look for Lung Xiaoyu. Besides, didn't some of you want to participate in the competition? Therefore, we'll also give him an authentication. Lu Feng explained with a smile. Oh, sorry to trouble you, Leng Ruoxue said politely. Oh, this little girl has actually learned to be polite, Lu Feng said as if he had discovered a new continent. You've settled all the conditions I requested. Now that we're living under someone else's roof, how dare you not be polite? Leng Ruoxue said helplessly. Little girl, I was wrong. You're still you. 2 drops of cold sweat dripped from Lu Feng's forehead as he said speechlessly. Haha. It's good that you know. By the way, that woman was very angry yesterday, right? Leng Ruoxue asked in a good mood. Not just angry. I heard that she smashed everything in her room. However, even if we're angry, she won't touch you easily. Don't worry, Lu Feng comforted. He thought that Leng Ruoxue was a little afraid. After all, that girl was just a child. What's there to be worried about? I'm not afraid of her. Leng Ruoxue rolled her eyes. In fact, she was wondering if she should make the first move. However, this was the territory of the Artificer Association after all. If she made a move here, it would probably make things difficult for the 2 men in front of her. After all, one of them was the master of her ancestor, and the other was considered a partner. Ugh. Lu Feng was depressed again. So he had made a mistake. I want to ask, what will happen if anything happens to that woman? Leng Ruoxue hesitated and asked curiously. You, Lu Feng pointed at Leng Ruoxue, and was so shocked that he couldn't speak. This girl couldn't be thinking of getting rid of Yin Rume, right? How bold. You can't touch her now, Mo Yin reminded calmly. He had heard about this little girl's personality from his disciple, so he naturally knew what Leng Ruoxue meant. Yes, that bitch is very capable and has many connections. Therefore, try your best to avoid her in the future. Lu Feng reminded him. However, they didn't really know Leng Ruoxue. Even though Leng Ruoxue hated trouble, it didn't mean that she was afraid of trouble. Moreover, she had always liked to nip trouble in the bud, so she naturally wouldn't let it grow into an uncontrollable towering tree. However, she had to consider the consequences of getting rid of that woman. Okay, Leng Ruoxue said perfunctorily. Then, she brought the 2 of them to look for Leng Xiaoyu. After that, they certified the old man Zhao. In the room, looking at the old man who was refining according to their request, the 2 of them could not help but discuss softly. This old man's basic skills are quite solid, Lu Feng praised. Even though there were many blacksmiths in the God realm, there were really not many who had such solid basic skills. The only regret was that this old man's intrinsic flame could not reach the divine flame level. Otherwise, with this old man's refining strength, his future achievements would definitely not be lower than Leng Xiaoyu's. Why? Do you want to take him in? Mo Yin raised his eyebrows and said in understanding. He knew that Lu Feng's standards were not lower than his, so it was very difficult for ordinary artificers to catch their eye. His flames are too ordinary, Lu Feng said with a hint of regret. In the God realm, only those whose vital flame were at the divine flame level would have greater achievements in the future. Even though this old man's basic skills were not bad, the level of his flames destined him to only be a slightly better than ordinary artificer. Chapter 1004. Storm of Criticism 1. It's not impossible to advance the flame, Mo Yin said after some thought. You mean the divine flame body tempering? Lu Feng was shocked. He had heard of the method Mo Yin mentioned, but so far, not many had succeeded because that method was too painful. That kind of pain was definitely not something an ordinary person could withstand. I just don't know if he has the willpower, Mo Yin said calmly. Lu Feng was in a difficult position. Even though he found this old man quite pleasing to the eye, he could not ask this old man to use that method to advance his vital flame. After all, that was a matter of life and death. Let's talk about it after the competition. Mo Yin looked at Lu Feng and said. In fact, he felt that the old man might agree. However, the risk of this matter was not small, so he had to think carefully. Yes. Lu Feng nodded. This matter could not be rushed. The 2 of them chatted softly, and Old Man Zhao was almost done refining. After a moment, Old Man Zhao stopped what he was doing and extinguished the fire. waiting for the equipment he had refined to be ready. As he was only an artificer, the level requirement for equipment was not that high. As for Mo Yen and Lu Feng, they only required him to refine spirit artifact level equipment. After that, he confidently handed the equipment he refined to Mo Yen and Lu Feng. After Mo Yen and Lu Feng carefully evaluated the equipment refined by the old man, they could not help but nod in satisfaction. Then they officially informed him that he had passed the artificer authentication. Please keep reading on MYB0's novel. When Mo Yen and Lu Feng left Lung Ruoxue and the others' residence and returned to their courtyard, they found Yin Rume sitting in the courtyard waiting for them. Where did you guys go? Why did you only come back now? Yin Rume roared angrily. She had been waiting here all morning and didn't know where the two of them had gone. How infuriating. Do we have to report to Vice President Yin where we're going? Lu Feng chuckled. The competition is about to begin. You have to tell me where you're going. Yin Rume emphasized. Since when did our Artificer Association have this rule? Isn't Mo Yen in charge of the competition? We just have to be spectators. Lu Feng asked coldly. But we can't just ignore everything. Yin Rume argued. Why not? Lu Feng said disapprovingly, his stomach churning. What can you care? You'll be lucky if you don't cause trouble. What if he forgets something? Yin Rume continued. That's his business. It has nothing to do with us, Lu Feng said irresponsibly. Then he put his hand on Mo Yan's shoulder and smiled faintly. Mo Yan, am I right? Well, you don't have to worry about me. Just take care of your subordinates. Mo Yan said ungratefully. Then he dragged Lu Feng into his room without even looking at Yin Rume. After the two of them entered the room, they secretly peeked out through the half-open window and saw that Yin Rume was still standing in the courtyard. Moreover, the anger on her face was difficult to dissipate. Why do you think she came to us? She's talking nonsense, Lu Feng asked curiously. What else? It's probably because of Yao Yuan, Mo Yen said knowingly. Then why didn't she say it directly? Why did she criticize us the moment she came? It's as if we weren't doing our job properly, and she was the only one who did her best for the association. Lu Feng said disdainfully. He hated Yin Rume the most. It's not like you just met her today. Is it worth getting angry over such a small matter? Mo Yen said speechlessly. Sometimes Lu Feng was like a child who liked to be willful. He. Who said I'm angry? It seems like she's the one who's angry now. Lu Feng said with a wicked smile. Ignore her. Well, pretend we don't know if she orders Yao Yuan to be released from prison. Mo Yen said after some thought. Please keep reading on MYB0's novel. Isn't that letting her off easy? Lu Feng said unhappily. The official competition will start the day after tomorrow. There's still time to deal with Yao Yuan and the others after the competition, Mo Yen said. All right then. Whatever you say. Lu Feng agreed, nodding. As Mo Yen had expected, after Yin Rume returned to her residence in a huff, she immediately ordered for Yao Yuan to be released from prison. The reason she gave was that the competition was about to begin, and the Artificer Association could not be without its leader. Otherwise, they would be laughed at. Mo Yen and Lu Feng smiled at this. They knew Yin Rume's style quite well after all. Therefore, they were not surprised that she would find such an excuse. When this news reached Lung Ruoxue and the others, they could not help but not know whether to laugh or cry. Without its leader? How could Flame City's Artificer Association be leaderless when there were vice presidents? However, it was not appropriate for them to discuss the internal affairs of the Artificer Association. They were living under someone else's roof now after all. In the courtyard, Lung Ruoxue and the others were chatting about this. Little Schwerin back. Suddenly, Lung Xiaoyu's voice sounded in their ears. Cheap sake old ancestor, where did you go? Lung Ruoxue looked at Lung Xiaoyu and asked curiously. I went to the city for a while and happened to meet a friend, so we chatted for a while, Lung Xiaoyu explained. Friend? Lung Ruoxue raised her beautiful eyes and sized up the timid man standing beside Lung Xiaoyu. The man's face was very old and even had an injury. His hair was gray, and his beautiful eyes were dim. At this moment, he was lowering his head timidly, not daring to look at them. The man's clothes were dirty and old. and they emitted a strange smell. Could this person be a friend of the cheap sake old ancestor? Lung Ruoxue couldn't believe it at all because in her eyes, this man was clearly a homeless beggar. Could it be that the cheap sake old ancestor was kind and wanted to do a good deed, so he brought back the wandering beggar he picked up on the street? She couldn't help but make wild guesses. However, it seemed quite difficult to pick up a beggar in Flame City. He's Fu Ran, my friend. Lung Xiaoyu explained helplessly. Sigh. It was really hard to predict everything. He did not expect to meet an old friend on the street, and in such a way. Chapter 1005. Storm of Criticism 2. Oh. Lung Ruoxue nodded in understanding. She had heard her cheap ancestor mention this name before because this person was the former president of the Flame City Artificer Association. But how did he become like this? Even if the position of president was snatched away, he didn't have to give up on himself like this. Feng, please bring him to take a shower and change into clean clothes. Lung Xiaoyu said politely. All right, follow me. Feng nodded readily and brought Fu Ran to wash up. Cheap sake old ancestor. How did Fu Ran become like this? Lung Ruoxue couldn't help but ask curiously after Fu Ran left. Sigh. It's a long story. When he was refining, he was framed and severely injured. Therefore, the position of president was replaced by Yao Yuan. Yao Yuan added insult to injury, and sent him to the equipment shop on the outskirts of Flame City to do odd jobs. Later, that shop was closed down and he was completely forgotten. Lung Xiaoyu said helplessly. Framed? Why am framed again? Lung Ruoxue was speechless. Why did artificers and alchemists like to frame others so much? Couldn't they just refine weapons and pills? Why did they have to be jealous of others? Sigh. This kind of thing is very normal. Lung Xiaoyu sighed softly. He had experienced something like that before too. However, he was lucky that the other party's plan did not succeed. Otherwise, he would not be where he was today. Cheap sake old ancestor, are you doing as the Romans do? I've never been framed for refining pills and weapons. Lung Ruoxue reminded with a naughty smile. Little Schwer, you're a little pervert. Those who frame you won't have a good ending. Besides, you have such an extraordinary encounter. You don't have to join the Artificer Association nor the Alchemist Association at all. Even if those artificers or alchemists want to frame you, they won't have a chance. Lung Xiaoyu said with a bitter smile. If he had a good opportunity like Little Schwer, who would care about the Artificer Association? That's true. Cheap sake old ancestor. What do you plan to do with Fu Ran? Lung Ruoxue changed the topic. Please keep reading on MYB Zero's novel. I don't know either. I'll discuss it with Master later. Lung Xiaoyu felt that this was an internal matter of the Artificer Association, so it was better to let Master handle it. This matter is most likely related to Yao Yuan. Unless they make up their minds to get rid of Yao Yuan, Fu Ran's matter can't be resolved. Besides, you should know his current situation. Even if they get rid of Yao Yuan, I'm afraid it will be difficult for him to gain a foothold in the Artificer Association. Lung Ruoxue reminded him. This world had always been realistic. The winner would be the king and the loser would be the bandit. Fu Ran was a failure. Even if Yao Yuan was no more the president, it would be difficult for him to regain his former glory. Little Schwer, do you have any good ideas? Lung Xiaoyu asked fawningly. Let Zheng'an take a look at his injuries first. Lung Ruoxue thought for a moment and said, yes. Lung Xiaoyu nodded happily. There were not many people in the world he could treat as friends, and Fu Ran was one of them. Therefore, he naturally did not want to see Fu Ran in this state. Not long after, Feng brought Fu Ran, who had already been cleaned, to Lung Ruoxue and the others. He's done, Miss, Feng Dao said. Yes, Zheng'an, give him a checkup. Lung Ruoxue instructed. Yes, Zheng'an replied. Then he wanted to check Fu Ran's injuries, but Fu Ran dodged him and looked at him with fear. Miss this. Zheng'an was helpless. How was he supposed to check if the patient didn't cooperate? Cheap sake old ancestor. Lung Ruoxue called softly. Be good, don't be afraid. They won't hurt you. Lung Xiaoyu coaxed him like he was coaxing a child. Okay, Fu Ran, whose eyes were still filled with fear, nodded. Then he obediently let Zheng En check his injuries. After a careful inspection, Zheng En reported to Leng Ruoxue. Miss, it's fire poison. Oh, Zheng En, then help him refine the antidote. Leng Ruoxue instructed. Refining an antidote for fire poison should not be difficult for Zheng En. Miss, he's not suffering from ordinary fire poison. He needs a fire lotus, Zheng said awkwardly. What kind of fire lotus? How many do you need? Leng Ruoxue asked calmly. There were many in the fire lotus space, but she didn't know if this Fu Ran was worth saving. Please keep reading on MYB0's novel. It has to be at least 1,000 years old, Zheng En said. To be honest, even though this person was a friend of Miss Ancestor, he was a complete stranger to them. Therefore, he was really reluctant to give him such a precious fire lotus. Then use it. Leng Ruoxue looked at Leng Xiaoyu and said helplessly. Little Schwer, thank you, Leng Xiaoyu said gratefully. Cheap sake, old ancestor, you don't have to be so polite. I just hope that your friend is worth saving, Leng Ruoxue said half-jokingly. She didn't want to save an ingrate. Yes, don't worry. I know him very well. Leng Xiaoyu understood what little Schwer meant, so he promised. That's good. Leng Ruoxue nodded, then brought Zheng En into the room and sent him into the bracelet. At night, Zheng En had already refined the pill. Looking at the fiery red pill, Leng Ruoxue handed it to her ancestor and told him what would happen. Then she brought the others into the bracelet. The next day, when they left the room and saw the young man sitting in the courtyard, their eyes widened in surprise. Who was this man? Why was he sitting in their yard? You're Fu Ran. Leng Ruoxue asked calmly. Yes, thank you for healing my injuries. Fu Ran stood up and bowed to the others. After his injuries, his appearance had returned to its youth. However, there was no way to turn his hair black anymore, but it had gone from gray to silver. You're welcome. It was nothing. Oh. Your hair is not bad, Leng Ruoxue praised politely. After Fu Ran recovered, he seemed to be much more confident. At least, the timid feeling and fear from yesterday could not be seen on him. Chapter 1006, Storm of Criticism 3. Hee. I think so too. Fu Ran chuckled. Then he looked at Zheng En and said apologetically, Thank you for refining the pill to treat my injuries. You're welcome. I'm just following Miss instructions. Zheng En did not dare to take credit. After all, Miss had asked him to do this. Otherwise, he might not have interfered. I still have to thank you. If you hadn't refined the pill, my injuries wouldn't have healed, Fu Ran said gratefully. He knew his injuries very well. Ordinary alchemists couldn't refine pills that could treat his injuries. As for alchemists above the alchemy supremacy level, even if he could afford them, he wouldn't be able to prepare so many medicinal herbs. There was no alchemist like Zheng En on the divine continent, who did not need the injured to prepare the medicinal herbs to deliver the pills to him. He knew that he had borrowed the glory of his old friend. He was afraid that he would never be able to repay this favor in this lifetime. You're too kind, Zheng En said helplessly. How long would it take to thank him like this? Their own people did not like this. By the way, where's the cheap sake old ancestor? Leng Ruoxue changed the topic. He went to see His Excellency Mo Yen, Fu Ran said. Alas! He knew that Leng Xiaoyu must have gone to see Mo Yen because of him again. In fact, after so many things, he no longer wanted to stay in the Artificer Association. What are your plans? Leng Ruoxue asked calmly. I want to leave Flame City and explore, Fu Ran said after some thought. Then go. It's very boring to be trapped in one place all the time, Leng Ruoxue encouraged. Please keep reading on MYB0's novel. But Fu Ran was in a difficult position. Even though he wanted to leave Flame City, he did not know how to speak to Leng Xiaoyu. After all, Leng Xiaoyu had already gone to look for Mo Yen for him. The old ancestor won't blame you. After all, this is your choice. You will understand. Leng Ruoxue saw through him and comforted him. You won't blame him for anything? Suddenly, Leng Xiaoyu's voice interrupted them. He had just returned from outside and heard little Schwer saying that she wouldn't blame him. Let Fu Ran tell you himself. Leng Ruoxue chuckled, and then brought the others to another garden, leaving this place to the two of them. When they arrived at the garden, Leng Ruoxue took out a recliner. Just as she lay down, she saw the freak pouting as he sat beside her. She couldn't help but be puzzled. What's wrong? Leng Ruoxue couldn't help asking curiously. Schwer, is silver white hair very good? The freak asked aggrievedly. Leng Ruoxue was speechless. Was the freak jealous again? Actually, she was just saying it casually. She didn't expect the freak to take it seriously. Who said that? I still like black, Leng Ruoxue quickly coaxed. That's better. However, if you really like silver white hair, I'll find a way to make them into the color you like, the freak said very seriously as he pulled his hair. No need. There's really no need. Leng Ruoxue quickly stopped him. This guy was already very monstrous now. If he had silver hair, would he still want to live? Schwer, you don't have to be polite with me, the freak said with a naughty smile. I'm not polite. There's really no need, Leng Ruoxue said speechlessly. She knew that this freak did it on purpose. Haha, you said it. The freak laughed in satisfaction. Then he stretched out his long arm and hugged Schwer. Cough, cough. Suddenly, two coughs sounded in their ears. The two of them looked up in unison, and saw Leng Xiaoyu and Fu Ran standing not far away from them. Leng Xiaoyu's face was filled with mischief, while Fu Ran's handsome face was filled with embarrassment. Are you done talking? Leng Ruoxue was a little surprised. These two people talked quite quickly. Please keep reading on myb0snovel.com. Yes, little Schwer, why aren't you paying attention to your influence when flirting in broad daylight? What if you lead children astray? Leng Xiaoyu teased with a smile. Are there children here? Don't look, don't look. Leng Ruoxue said angrily. Alas! Her cheap sake old ancestor had learned bad things and knew how to tease her. Haha! Is little Schwer angry from embarrassment? Leng Xiaoyu said happily. No way. Oh right, tomorrow is the weapon refinement competition, right? Didn't Mo Yin tell you anything? Leng Ruoxue asked curiously. I'm not participating in the competition. What can he tell me? However, he asked me to remind Old Man Zhao to pay attention to a few opponents. Those people are very strong, Leng Xiaoyu said worriedly. He had left the Divine Continent for too long, and had not seen those people before. Therefore, he was not very clear about the true strength of those people, and he could not give Old Man Zhao too good an opinion. Therefore, he could only remind Old Man Zhao to improvise tomorrow. Oh, don't worry, Old Man Zhao can handle it, Leng Ruoxue said calmly. She was very confident in the Old Man Zhao's strength and mental endurance, so she was not worried at all. Yes, I've already instructed him. Leng Xiaoyu nodded. The next day, the once-in-century artificer competition officially began. The artificer competition this time did not change much compared to the previous years. However, the number of matches increased from 3 to 5. Moreover, there was an additional assessment of basic skills. However, the rules of the competition did not change. The highest score was also determined by victory. The competition this time was divided into a total of 5 days. There would be a competition every day so that every artificer could have enough time to rest. Not only that, as a gathering to choose outstanding artificer, the competition also attracted the attention of the various families. Therefore, many families sent people to watch the battle. Leng Ruoxue and the others walked into the competition venue under Leng Xiaoyu's lead. Because of Leng Xiaoyu, their seats were relatively forward and happened to be in the middle, so their line of sight was very good. Haha, this seat is not bad. Feng praised happily. We're all benefiting from our cheap sake old ancestor, otherwise, we wouldn't be qualified to sit here, Leng Ruoxue said with understanding. Even the 8 great families probably weren't qualified to sit in such a good seat. Chapter 1007. Storm of Criticism 4? Yes, yes. Everyone nodded in unison, making Leng Xiaoyu not know whether to laugh or cry. Today is the first match. Do you need to hold back? Lu Tao asked in confusion. The first and second rounds of the competition test the basics of refining equipment, so there's nothing to hold back, Lung Ruoxue explained with a light smile. In her opinion, the first 2 rounds of the competition were extremely important, and it was also the easiest to get points. Therefore, it wouldn't be worth it if anyone held back in these 2 rounds. Oh, good luck, old man Zhao. Lu Tao hurriedly shouted when she saw that the old man had already walked into the arena. When old man Zhao heard Lu Tao's voice, he even waved at them with a relaxed expression. A moment later, with a whistle from the host, the first round of the artificer competition officially began. There were nearly 1,000 artificers participating in the competition this time, and the scene of so many people refining weapons at the same time was also quite spectacular. As the test was the basic skills of refining, their steps were basically the same. The final judgment depended on whose refining technique was more proficient. Old man Zhao methodically placed the materials into the furnace one by one. Then he watched very patiently as the materials melted, purified, finally fixed and tempered. The entire set of movements was as smooth and natural as flowing water. Even though he was not the first to complete the refinement, his expression was the most relaxed. While old man Zhao was refining, Mo Yin and Lu Feng, who were at the judges' seats, had also been paying attention to him. After seeing him finish refining, the 2 of them couldn't help but look at each other and smile. They were still very confident in the strength of this inconspicuous, disheveled old man. In their opinion, the first 2 matches were as if they were tailor-made for the disheveled old man. It wasn't difficult for him at all. After all the artificers on the field had finished refining, the first day of the competition officially ended. However, the results of the first competition could not be immediately evaluated. After all, there were too many people participating in the first competition. Therefore, the results could only be announced in the afternoon. Please keep reading on MYB0's novel. After the competition ended, Lung Ruoxue and the others immediately returned to their residence. After returning to the courtyard, Feng and the others surrounded old man Zhao and asked him questions with concern. Little Shuer, why don't you go and ask? Lung Qianye couldn't help but ask curiously when he saw little Shuer's calm expression. What's there to ask? I know old man Zhao's strength very well, Lung Ruoxue said with a light smile. In her opinion, there was no problem for old man Zhao to enter the top 3. She had also carefully observed the few people that the cheap sake old ancestor had reminded them to pay attention to. Among those few people, only one person's basic skills was comparable to old man Zhao's. As for the other artifact masters participating in the competition, they were naturally not within her consideration. However, she could not rule out the possibility of a dark horse jumping out, so she set the top 3 for old man Zhao. Haha, don't worry. I can't say anything else, but am still very confident in my basic skills. At this moment, old man Zhao walked over and patted Lung Qianye's shoulder. That's good, Lung Qianye said in relief. Lung Ruoxue and the others were extremely relaxed, but Mo Yin and Lu Feng were not in a good mood. In the meeting room of the Artificer Association. At this moment, even though the conference room was filled with people, there was silence. Everyone present did not dare to breathe as they stole a glance at Mo Yin and Lu Feng, who had dark faces. President Yao, is this the ranking you evaluated? Mo Yin narrowed his eyes and asked unhappily. At this moment, he was very angry and even angrier. Humph. These guys were really too lawless. Did they really think that he and Lu Feng were dead? They actually dared to bring such results in front of them and ask for their approval? Yes, this is the unanimous opinion of all of us judges, Yao Yuan said confidently. With his backing, he would not be so afraid when facing Mo Yin and Lu Feng. Bring out the equipment they refined. We want to check it ourselves, Lu Feng said with a cold glint in his eyes. Damn it. Old man Zhao that he and Mo Yin both thought highly of was actually ranked 51st by these people. With such a ranking, even if old man Zhao obtained first place in the last 4 rounds, the championship would probably fall to someone else. His Excellency Lu Feng, this is against the rules. You are also mistrusting our work as judges, Yao Yuan said boldly. Fortunately, he was already prepared. Otherwise, when Lu Feng made such a request, he really didn't know what to do. Actually, he was very confident when he said that. Under normal circumstances, Mo Yan and Lu Feng would not pay too much attention to the first few matches, so it would be relatively easy for him to do something if he wanted to. However, he did not have the guts to do that for the last 3 matches. Even though he was prepared to be attacked by Mo Yan and Lu Feng, he did not expect them to really ask. They even wanted to check personally. This was absolutely not allowed. If they really checked, the tricks they did would be exposed. Against the rules? The rules are dead, but people are alive. Moreover, the rules are all set by us. If we want to check, do you dare to disagree? Lu Feng questioned coldly. Please keep reading on MYB0's novel. Calm Sir Lu Feng, if you really want to check, how can I dare to disagree? However, you clearly don't trust us. In that case, what's the point of us being judges? Yao Yuan looked at Yin Rumei and said with an extremely aggrieved expression. You're right. I just don't trust you. If any of you don't want to be a judge, you can bring it up now, Lu Feng said without being threatened. Sir Lu Feng, are you really going to do this? Yao Yuan made up his mind. That's right. Which one of you doesn't want to be a judge? Tell me in advance. Lu Feng said with certainty. All right. Then we won't be judges anymore. Yao Yuan said loudly. You? I'm sorry, President Yao. You can only represent yourself but not them. Lu Feng said mockingly. Did this Yao Yuan really think that everything would be fine with that bitch Yin Rumei backing him up? He thought too highly of that woman. Tell His Excellency Lu Feng that you don't have to be judges anymore. Yao Yuan shouted at the judges. Most of the judges for this competition were the presidents of the various branches in the Divine Continent, so he was still very confident in his appeal. Chapter 1008. Storm of Criticism 5. Unfortunately, after hearing his words, no one in the various branch presidents dared to say such words. After all, no one was stupid. Who would take the risk of offending Mo Yan and Lu Feng to help Yao Yuan? Yao Yuan had made a mistake and had someone to help clean up the mess, but they didn't. Since no one doesn't want to be a judge except President Yao, please leave the meeting room. Lu Feng ordered coldly. You want me to leave the meeting room? On what basis? Yao Yuan said angrily. Is there a need for that? We're discussing something related to the competition now. You're not a judge, so you naturally don't have the right to listen. Lu Feng chuckled. He really didn't know what was wrong with Yao Yuan's brain to actually dare to question him. I'm the president of the Flame City Artificer Association. Yao Yuan emphasized. Yes, you're the president, and I'm only the vice president. No wonder you refused to listen to my orders. Lu Feng teased with a mischievous smile. Yao Yuan was speechless and looked at Yin Rumei for help. However, Yin Rumei acted as if she didn't see it and only said indifferently, President Yao, in that case, you can leave first. Lord Rumei. Yao Yuan was shocked. What did this woman mean? She actually didn't help him. Damn old woman, just you wait. I'll teach you a lesson. Retreat first. Yin Rumei said with a stern expression. Please keep reading on MYB0's novel, Yes. Yao Yuan suppressed his anger and slammed the door as he left the meeting room. All right, President Yao has already withdrawn. President Lu, you are temporarily in charge of the judging work. Now go and present the equipment refined by those blacksmiths. His Excellency Mo Yan and I want to take a look personally, Lu Feng instructed. Originally, President Lu was also locked up by them like Yao Yuan. However, after Yin Rumei released Yao Yuan, he and Mo Yan ordered for everyone else to be released at the same time. Let them fight each other. Yes. President Lu nodded fearfully, his face full of helplessness. He really didn't want to be involved in the scheming of these higher-ups. However, it was impossible to back down now. Well, it could also be said that the other party didn't allow him to come down at all. So he could only accept his fate and choose a side. Not long after President Lu left the meeting room, he returned with a storage ring in his hand. Your Excellency Mo Yan, Your Excellency Lu Feng, the equipment refined by the artificers participating in the competition is inside. Please take a look, President Lu said very respectfully. Yes. Mo Yin nodded and took out the equipment from the ring. He said to Lu Feng, for the fairness of the competition, we have to work harder. It's all right, this bit of equipment is nothing, Lu Feng replied indifferently. As for Rume, she was ignored by the two of them. Rume was furious when she saw that the two of them had no intention of asking her for help at all. However, in order to show the others who were sitting, she had to act united. How could you forget me? I can help you check together. There's no need. Just rest, Mo Yin said coldly. That's right. How can a beauty like you do such manual labor? Lu Feng did not intend to let this annoying woman interfere. Otherwise, who knew what she would do? You guys are really considerate. Rume gritted her teeth and said hatefully. Of course. How can I not be protective of the only woman here? Lu Feng teased. However, his actions were not delayed at all. In the blink of an eye, he evaluated the score of an equipment and recorded it. The two of them worked for nearly an hour. All the equipment was finally checked, and the mistakes in the scores were corrected. The speed at which the two of them moved also stunned the judges who were sitting. Oh my God! This was really fast. Nearly 1,000 pieces of equipment were evaluated in less than an hour. The judges couldn't help but sigh in their hearts. At the same time, their admiration for Mo Yin and Lu Feng rose to a new height. President Lu, rearrange the scores that Sir Lu Feng and I have evaluated and announce the results according to this. Mo Yin handed his and Lu Feng's records to President Lu. Yes, President Lu replied respectfully. Then he took Mo Yin and Lu Feng's records and started sorting them out. Please keep reading on MYB0's novel. Sir Mo Yin and I have checked all the equipment and found many wrong results inside. Can any of you tell me what's going on? At this moment, Lu Feng said lightly. He wouldn't have known if he didn't check, but once he did, he was shocked. If it weren't for him and Mo Yin, many outstanding blacksmiths would probably have been cast aside by them. Thinking of this, the anger in his heart surged. As soon as Lu Feng said this, all the judges lowered their heads. No one dared to look at him, let alone say a word. Otherwise, they would probably be the punching bag for His Excellency Lu Feng. I can guess what's going on even if you don't say it. However, what I want to tell you is that His Excellency Mo Yin and I won't pursue the matter from before. If there's a next time, all of you get out of the Artificer Association. Our Artificer Association can't afford to lose face, Lu Feng said loudly. Actually, he knew very well who was the culprit behind this matter, so he did not intend to make an example out of these people. After all, these people were not important enough to serve as a warning to others. Otherwise, how could he let them off so easily? Yes. When the judges present heard Lu Feng's words, most of their hearts were relieved. There were even people who could not help but wipe the cold sweat on their foreheads. They thought to themselves, that was close. This round is finally over. President Lu, announce the results immediately after you're done. If anything happens, you can come to me directly, Mo Yin said. He believed that nothing would happen again. Yes, President Lu replied. After the results were sorted out, he directly announced it to prevent any accidents. Once the results were announced, there were naturally some who were happy and some who were sad. In the first round of the competition, Old Man Zhao entered the top 3 as Lung Ruoxua had expected. Moreover, he was first place. However, there was only a 1-point difference between him and the second place. It was a narrow victory. After the first round of the competition ended, nearly 200 people would be eliminated. It was definitely considered the best of the best. Moreover, as the competition progressed, the competition would become more and more intense. Old Man Zhao won the first round of the competition, so Lung Ruoxua and the others naturally had to celebrate for him. Therefore, their residence could be said to be very lively. Haha! Congratulations, dirty old man. Feng De and the others went forward to toast the dirty old man one after another. However, they naturally didn't drink. Otherwise, if they got Old Man Zhao drunk, they wouldn't be able to compete tomorrow. Old ancestor, what are you thinking? Lung Ruoxua looked at Lung Xiaoyu's thoughtful expression and couldn't help but ask curiously. Little Shuer, The second place on the rankings is the Genius Ascender from the Ascender Alliance. You saw it today. His basic skills are quite solid, and his strength is not inferior to Old Man Zhao. Therefore, the competition between them will be very intense. Moreover, if nothing unexpected happens, the champion should be between the two of them, Leng Xiaoyu analyzed. Old Ancestor, I saw a few people with good strength today. Why are you ignoring the others? Leng Ruoxue teased. Those people's basic skills can't compare to the two of them, and this also affects their scores to a certain extent, so their chances of becoming the champion are very slim. Leng Xiaoyu chuckled. Isn't that Yin Rumai's disciple? How did you forget about her? Leng Ruoxue reminded. If Yin Rumai doesn't do anything, it'll be good enough if her disciple can get third place, Leng Xiaoyu said in disdain. Yin Rumai's disciple was third in the first round, and he was certain that this was the result of his master, and Sir Lu Feng going easy on her. Haha, you actually don't look at good people. However, I think she seems to have a good impression of you, Leng Ruoxue said with a wicked smile. Before the competition started today, a young woman took the initiative to greet them. Later on, she found out that the person was Yin Rumai's beloved disciple. Little Schwer, are you asking for a beating? Leng Xiaoyu pretended to be angry. He was not a rag-and-bone man, and would not accept just anyone. Chapter 1009. The Ultimate Master and Disciple. 1. Speak of the Devil. As soon as Leng Xiaoyu finished speaking, everyone saw a young woman appear in front of them under the lead of the butler. After feeling their gazes, she even nodded shyly at them. Hello everyone. The young woman said politely. Miss Leng, Miss Ruhua wants to see His Excellency Leng Xiaoyu, so I brought her over. The butler felt a few unfriendly gazes and quickly explained. Ooh, did he do something wrong? Why was someone glaring at him so fiercely? Miss Ruhua? Leng Ruoxue almost laughed when she heard this title. She didn't expect Yin Rumai's disciple to be called Ruhua. This made her think of something. Nonetheless, the woman in front of her was a rare beauty, and her temperament was very outstanding. However, she knew very well that you couldn't just look at people on the surface. It wasn't like there were no sanctimonious guys. Senior brother Xiaoyu. Ruhua came to Leng Xiaoyu shyly and said softly, What are you doing here? Leng Xiaoyu said without giving her any face. He did not want to meet anyone related to Yin Rumai. Senior brother Xiaoyu. Ruhua's beautiful eyes were filled with tears as she looked at Leng Xiaoyu aggrievedly. You shouldn't be here. Go back. Leng Xiaoyu said coldly. Senior brother Xiaoyu, I'm only here to congratulate the old man for getting first place in the first round. I don't have any other intentions, Ruhua explained softly. However, her words were so ambiguous that even D. Ren's butler couldn't believe her. Please keep reading on myb0novel.com. There's no need. After all, your opponents. It's not appropriate for you to meet before the competition, lest you cause unnecessary misunderstandings. Leng Xiaoyu refused. Yin Rumai's people were not so kind. Who knew why they came here? All right. In that case, senior brother Xiaoyu, I'll take my leave, Ruhua said with slight disappointment. After saying that, she turned around and left. Butler, don't let anyone related to Yin Rumai in the future. After Ruhua left, Leng Xiaoyu reminded him with a straight face. Yes, the butler replied quickly. He wiped the cold sweat from his forehead again and turned to leave. Senior brother Xiaoyu, you're too heartless. After the butler left, Leng Ruoxue imitated Ruhua and teased. Little Schwer, you're really asking for a beating. Leng Xiaoyu shook his head helplessly. Sigh. Sometimes he really did not know what to do with this naughty little girl. Haha. Leng Ruoxue laughed happily. Why did she feel like gloating when she saw her ancestor being pestered by a woman? Miss, is Ruhua really here to congratulate the old man? Feng couldn't help but ask curiously. How is that possible? That woman clearly has an ulterior motive. However, her excuse is a little lousy. She said she was here to congratulate the old man, but she kept trying to get close to her cheap ancestor. Leng Ruoxue said knowingly. That's right. Feng nodded in agreement. That woman was really too hypocritical. I wouldn't dare use her to congratulate me. Women are a lot of trouble. The disheveled old man looked scared. Haha. Ignore her. Let's continue to celebrate for the old man. Chengwu laughed heartily. Yes. Yes. Don't ruin our fun because of a woman who came uninvited, Feng hurriedly said. Then everyone acted as if nothing had happened and went about their business. Even though Leng Ruoxue and the others were not affected at all, Ruhua was not in a good mood. After returning from Leng Ruoxue's place, Ruhua flew into a rage and smashed everything in her room. What's wrong? What are you doing? Yao Yuan asked in surprise when he saw the mess in the room. Get out! Who allowed you to come in? Ruhua roared angrily and threw a vase at Yao Yuan. I didn't provoke you, why are you angry at me? Yao Yuan dodged the vase that was thrown at him and said unhappily, why was the temper of this master and disciple so bad? Little beauties were still the best. He couldn't help but compare Leng Ruoxue to them in his heart. Please keep reading on MYB0's novel. What are you doing here? You're not welcome here. Ruhua said coldly. Right now, she didn't want to see anyone. Not even her master. Women are really heartless. With a new person, they forget the old. Yao Yuan sighed. What nonsense are you spouting? Ruhua said fearfully. Am I spouting nonsense? For you, I've already offended Mo Yen and Lu Feng. Tell me, how are you going to compensate me? Yao Yuan pulled Ruhua into his arms and teased. That has nothing to do with me. Master asked you to do it. Ruhua struggled out of Yao Yuan's arms and argued. Isn't that also for you? So you can't turn your back on me. Yao Yuan said shamelessly. Yao Yuan, what do you want? Ruhua said helplessly. We've been married for a night. Of course I hope you can stand on my side. Otherwise, if I accidentally reveal our relationship one day, do you think you can still have your current status? Yao Yuan smiled evilly. You? Ruhua was so angry with Yao Yuan that her cheeks turned red and she could not speak. As long as I maintain my current status, I won't spout nonsense. However, if I lose everything, I can't guarantee anything. Yao Yuan reminded him and left Ruhua's room. When Ruhua saw that Yao Yuan had left after threatening her, she could not help but tremble with anger. Damn it! He actually dared to threaten her with this matter. However, she was really afraid that Yao Yuan would reveal this secret that had been buried in her heart for a long time. After thinking about it, she had no choice but to look for her master personally. When they arrived at Yin Rumai's room, Ruhua first listened for any movement inside. After confirming that there was nothing unusual, she dared to knock on the door. As Yin Rumai said, "Come in." Ruhua pushed open the door and walked in. "Master." Ruhua threw herself at Yin Rumai coquettishly, but Yin Rumai dodged her. Chapter 10:10, The Ultimate Master and Disciple, 2. Damn girl, you're still so crazy at this age. Yin Rumai growled helplessly. Master. Ruhua looked at Yin Rumai with slight grievance. Wretched girl, tell me, what's the matter? Yin Rumai knew that her disciple would definitely not come to her for no reason. So as long as he came to look for her, he must have something to ask of her. Wretched girl, tell me, what's the matter? Yin Rumai knew that her disciple would definitely not come to her for no reason. So as long as he came to look for her, he must have something to ask of her. You want to ask about this? I thought you came to find me because of Leng Xiaoyu. Yin Rumai teased. She knew that her disciple fell in love with Leng Xiaoyu at first sight, but she had to admit that Ruhua had good taste. Master. Ruhua called coquettishly, looking defiant. If it's because of Leng Xiaoyu, I'll risk my face to help you explain. If it's because of Yao Yuan, then don't ask. Yin Rumai reminded him. She didn't want to think about what Yao Yuan had done at all. That piece of trash couldn't even do anything properly. She was so angry. Master, is President Yao's matter very serious? Ruhua asked in surprise. In the past, her master often talked about Yao Yuan. Now he was actually unwilling to mention him. This really surprised her. I'm afraid he won't be able to keep his position as president. Yin Rumai sighed softly and said helplessly. This time, Those two fellows probably wouldn't give her face anymore. Sigh. But will he betray us? Ruhua asked worriedly. Please keep reading on MYB0's novel. Don't worry, he won't dare. Inrume said confidently. Without her, Yao Yuan wouldn't be where he was today. Therefore, she was certain that Yao Yuan wouldn't be able to escape from her. Oh, then I'm relieved, Ruhua said with a calm expression. In fact, she was extremely worried. Yao Yuan might not dare to betray her master, but what if he betrayed her? If she did not have her master as a backer, she would not be able to enjoy such good treatment in the blacksmith guild. No, she had to think of a good solution. She could not help but think to herself. Ruhua, what are your plans? Inrume asked again. I don't have any plans. Ruhua hurriedly said like a frightened bird. Don't you have any plans for Leng Xiaoyu? Inrume asked in confusion. I'm working on it. Ruhua said with relief. She was scared to death. She thought her master had seen something. It's not enough to just work hard. You have to have some means. Otherwise, how can you firmly control a man in your hands? Inrume reminded. Yes, master. When Ruhua heard her master's words, she could not help but feel a little depressed. Leng Xiaoyu did not give her any face at all. Even if she had any methods, she could not use them. Sigh. From the looks of it, I know that you can't handle Leng Xiaoyu at all. How about this? I'll go look for Mo Yan and tell him about you. Leng Xiaoyu has to listen to his master, right? Inrume said self-righteously. Thank you, master. Ruhua said happily. Hee. With master around, she believed that Leng Xiaoyu would definitely not be able to escape from her. These two disciples were equally confident. Inrume was also an impatient person. After discussing with her disciple, she directly rushed to Mo Yan's residence. Coincidentally, Lu Feng was also there. Seeing Lu Feng's ruffian appearance, Inrume couldn't help but frown. Then she reluctantly said, Lu Feng is also here. That's right. Why are you here too? Lu Feng replied, but his eyes were not looking at Inrume at all. Instead, he was flirting with Mo Yan. Why is she here? How should I know? Mo Yan replied with the same look. Vice President In, what brings you here? Mo Yan asked indifferently, unsure of Inrume's intentions. Of course I'm here for something good, Inrume said with a smile. Good thing. Mo Yan frowned. As if he didn't believe anything good could come of this woman's visit. Please keep reading on MYB0's novel. It can be considered a joyous occasion. Inrume explained. Don't tell me you're going to marry Yao Yuan. Congratulations. Lu Feng smiled evilly. No. I'm here for Ruhua and Xiaoyu. Inrume said bluntly, suppressing her anger. Hee. What can happen between them? Lu Feng pretended to be stupid, but he could not help but mutter in his heart. Could it be that this old woman wants to marry Mo Yan? What a good plan. However, not to mention that Mo Yan would not agree to such a thing. Even if he did, Leng Xiaoyu would probably not agree. Don't you think they're very compatible? They're both Mo Yan and my disciples. Their statuses are the same. They're simply a match made in heaven. Inrume said one-sidedly, her beautiful face filled with joy. So what? Lu Feng said with a chuckle. It's none of your business. Why are you interrupting? Inrume roared angrily. Lu Feng was really too annoying. He always liked to go against her. Haha. Mo Yan, it's your turn to express your stance. Lu Feng smiled happily, but his face was filled with gloating. I don't understand what you mean. Mo Yan rolled his eyes at Lu Feng, who feared that the world would not be in chaos, before speaking reluctantly. Am I not clear enough? I hope the two of them can get married, Inrume said bluntly. Oh, but you seem to have to talk to the two of them about this. It's useless to tell me. Mo Yan said indifferently. Aren't you his master? If I don't talk to you, who should I talk to? Inrume asked. In her mind, since Mo Yan was Leng Xiaoyu's master, no matter what Mo Yan asked Leng Xiaoyu to do, Leng Xiaoyu should not and could not refuse. Therefore, she directly came to look for Mo Yan. So what? Mo Yan asked. Of course you can make decisions for him. In Rumei said matter-of-factly. And then? Let him marry Ruhua? Mo Yin said with a faint smile. Of course, they are such a compatible couple. In Rumei said happily. I'm sorry, I can't agree to it. Mo Yin refused without thinking. Chapter 10-11. The Ultimate Master and Disciple 3. Why? In Rumei asked incredulously. No reason. If Xiaoyu likes Ruhua, then I have nothing to say. However, if you want me to use my status as a master to force him to marry your disciple, I can tell you clearly now that it's impossible. I won't ask about my disciple's private matters. Mo Yin said calmly. You're his master. Can't you make a decision on such a small matter? In Rumei couldn't help but roar. She originally thought that this matter would be very easy, but she didn't expect to bump into Mo Yin first. She was really furious. This is not a matter of whether I can make the decision or not. Even though he is my disciple, I have to respect his personal opinion. Mo Yin explained simply. However, he knew that even if he said this, that arrogant woman In Rumei would not understand. Humph. I really didn't expect that you can't even be the master of your disciple. In Rumei said mockingly. Think whatever you want. If there's nothing else to say, you can leave. Mo Yin directly ordered him to leave. You'll regret it. Don't come and beg me then. In Rumei said angrily. After saying that, she turned around and left. This woman's brain structure is different from ordinary people. I don't understand why she would think of letting Xiaoyu marry Ruhua. How are these two compatible? Lu Feng asked in confusion after In Rumei left. Who cares? But she'd better not do anything stupid. Otherwise, I won't let her go. Mo Yin said softly. I really didn't expect Ruhua to take a fancy to your precious disciple. Well, I have to say that she has good taste. Lu Feng smiled evilly. He and In Rumei were thinking the same thing. Please keep reading on MYB0's novel.com. So what? Don't mention this in front of Xiaoyu, or it'll teach you a lesson, Mo Yin warned. Don't worry. I won't tell anyone, Lu Feng promised, but he had underestimated Ruhua's thick skin. After her master went to Mo Yin to discuss her and Lung Xiaoyu, Ruhua's heart was in a mess, so she paced around the Artificer Association nervously alone. Unknowingly, she arrived at Lung Ruoxue and the others' residence again. At this moment, Lung Ruoxue and the others were preparing to rest. After hearing the butler's announcement, everyone's gazes subconsciously drifted to Lung Xiaoyu. Why are you looking at me? Lung Xiaoyu roared angrily. Miss Ruhua is definitely not here to congratulate me this time. Old man Zhao was the first to speak. Not me either, added Fengda. It's even more impossible for it to be me. Cheng Wu and the others said. Haha. Lung Ruoxue couldn't help but laugh when she saw them like this. She realized that her subordinates were getting cuter and cuter, but her cheap sake old ancestor's expression wasn't very good. Lung Xiaoyu was so angry that her face turned green. Then, she said to the butler angrily, let her in. He wanted to see what excuse the woman had found this time. Yes, the butler said carefully, and disappeared with a whoosh. Not long after, Ruhua walked into the inner courtyard alone. When she saw Lung Ruoxue and the others, she didn't even bother to greet them and went straight to Lung Xiaoyu. Senior brother Xiaoyu, Ruhua said softly with a red face. What's the matter? Why did you have to come so late? Lung Xiaoyu said coldly. I couldn't sleep, Ruhua said sheepishly. You can't sleep? Lung Xiaoyu couldn't help but roll her eyes when she heard this. She thought to herself, why are you disturbing us when you can't sleep? If you don't sleep, we still want to sleep. Yes, I want senior brother Xiaoyu to chat with me for a while. Ruhua lowered her head and said softly. She was too excited and did not hear the impatience in Lung Xiaoyu's tone. Please keep reading on MYB0's novel. Yes, I want senior brother Xiaoyu to chat with me for a while. Ruhua lowered her head and said softly. She was too excited and did not hear the impatience in Lung Xiaoyu's tone. Lung Xiaoyu was about to say that they were too much. However, he only said 2 words before Lung Ruoxue and the others disappeared. This made him angry. After Lung Ruoxue took them away, She brought everyone into the bracelet. Then, everyone observed the commotion outside through the light screen. In the inner courtyard garden, Leng Xiaoyu stood in the corner without saying a word. Ruhua stood not far away, her eyes filled with love as she stared at Leng Xiaoyu. Senior brother Xiaoyu. After a while, Ruhua couldn't help but say, "Just say whatever you want to say." Leng Xiaoyu was very cold. Senior brother Xiaoyu, Master went to look for Mo Yin to talk about our business just now, Ruhua said shyly. Our business? What business do we have? Leng Xiaoyu asked in confusion. He didn't think there was anything between him and Ruhua. Our marriage, we're getting married soon, Ruhua said matter-of-factly. What? Leng Xiaoyu was shocked. Was he hallucinating? Why did he hear about a marriage? I said we're getting married, Ruhua said with a happy smile. Who said that? Why didn't I know? Leng Xiaoyu was very depressed. An outsider had told him that he was getting married, and he had not heard anything about it before this. This was really abnormal. It's my master. She's gone to discuss this with His Excellency Mo Yin, Ruhua explained. I'll go find my master. Leng Xiaoyu was furious. Damn it. Was he planning to act first and report later? Even though he believed that his master would not agree to such a thing for him, if he did not ask clearly, he would probably be the one who could not sleep tonight. I'll go with you, Ruhua said. She did not expect Leng Xiaoyu to be so concerned about the two of them. It was already so late, but she still had to look for His Excellency Mo Yin to confirm it. Thinking of this, she was delighted. No need. Go back to sleep, Leng Xiaoyu said angrily. However, his words became concern for her. Chapter 10-12. The Ultimate Master and Disciple for Ruhua replied obediently. Alright, I'll go back to sleep. There's still a competition tomorrow. Senior brother Xiaoyu will come and watch my competition, right? Of course I'm going, Leng Xiaoyu said perfunctorily, but he couldn't help but feel uneasy. Even if I go, I won't be rooting for you. With that, Leng Xiaoyu could not be bothered with Ruhua anymore and strode towards Mo Yan's residence. As soon as she reached the door, Leng Xiaoyu bumped into Mo Yan and Ru Feng. Hee. Speak of the devil. Lu Feng chuckled and teased. Master. Sir Lu Feng. Leng Xiaoyu greeted them politely. Xiaoyu, why are you here so late? Mo Yan asked curiously. He was about to send Lu Feng out when he unexpectedly saw his beloved disciple. Master, I heard that I'm getting married? Leng Xiaoyu asked directly. Who did you hear that from? Mo Yan said speechlessly. How did this matter reach the ears of his precious disciple? Ruhua told me. She said that we're getting married. Leng Xiaoyu betrayed Ruhua without hesitation and told the truth. Please keep reading on MYB0's novel. Come hee. This pair of master and disciple are really impatient. Lu Feng said with a wicked smile. Xiaoyu, don't listen to her nonsense. Rume came to look for me, but I didn't agree. Mo Yan explained helplessly. Hee. I know that master definitely won't answer. Leng Xiaoyu was relieved. Then why did you come to ask me? Brat. You clearly don't trust me. Mo Yan said aggrievedly. Master, you can't be so petty. I'm just here to confirm it. Otherwise, I'll die of depression. Leng Xiaoyu was also very aggrieved. Boo. He was almost married off. Xiaoyu, what did Ruhua tell you? Lu Feng asked curiously. She said that we were going to get married soon, so she was so excited that she couldn't sleep and asked me to chat with her. Leng Xiaoyu said speechlessly. After living for so many years, he had seen many women, but he had never met such a top-notch woman. Haha. She hasn't even gotten married yet. Isn't she being too impatient to tell you? Lu Feng couldn't help but laugh wildly. What's so funny? Leng Xiaoyu rolled her eyes and thought to herself. You'll meet such a woman sooner or later. Are you done laughing? Mo Yan was a little dissatisfied with the laughing Lu Feng. Damn it, how dare he laugh at his disciple? If the two of them weren't friends, he would have beaten him up long ago. Alright. I won't laugh. Lu Feng was a little afraid. Well, he was still very afraid of Mo Yan's anger. Xiaoyu, it's fine. Don't worry. Master won't betray your happiness. It's getting late. Go back and sleep. Mo Yin comforted her. Yes, Master. Sir Lu Feng'll go back first. With that, Leng Xiaoyu turned around and left. The next day, Leng Ruoxue and the others left the room and saw Leng Xiaoyu sitting alone in the courtyard. Cheap sake, old ancestor. I haven't congratulated you yet. Leng Ruoxue smiled fearlessly. In fact, she had wanted to tease old ancestor yesterday, but when she thought that there was still a competition the next day, she gave up. Therefore, Leng Xiaoyu dodged a bullet. Leng Ruoxue, are you asking for a beating? Leng Xiaoyu roared angrily. However, no one took his words seriously because this was not the first time he had threatened Leng Ruoxue like this. Please keep reading on MYB Zero's novel, Calm Cheap Sake, Old Ancestor. You can't threaten me. We all heard Ruhua's words yesterday. Leng Ruoxue said disapprovingly. Yes, I heard it too. Everyone spoke at once with a hint of anticipation in their eyes. Old man, aren't you going to participate in the competition? It'll be too late if you don't leave now. Looking at the old man, Leng Xiaoyu gritted his teeth and reminded him. These little fellows who were asking for a beating all wanted to see the world in chaos. He was really angry. We can make it. Old man Zhao said disapprovingly. With his strength, it didn't matter if he was a few minutes late. You're not leaving, are you? All right. Then I'll leave. Leng Xiaoyu roared with a dark expression. With that, she really turned around and left the courtyard. Is Grandpa angry? Leng Qianye couldn't help but feel uneasy when he saw his grandfather leave angrily. Don't worry. He can't bear to be angry with us. However, we can't go overboard. Let's go coax him. Leng Ruoxue thought for a moment and said, Yes. Everyone nodded in unison. Then they caught up with Leng Xiaoyu. Under everyone's coaxing, Leng Xiaoyu finally smiled. Hee. The older the ginger, the spicier it is. Leng Xiaoyu looked at Leng Ruoxue and the others who were acting cute around him and felt proud. Compared to being scheming, how could these little things be his match? However, what he didn't know was that Leng Ruoxue and the others were deliberately giving in to him. Everyone chatted and laughed all the way to the competition venue. Before they could sit down, they were interrupted again. Senior brother Xiaoyu, you're here. A gentle and slightly surprised voice sounded in everyone's ears. Chapter 10:13. Poisoned and Unconscious 1. When Leng Xiaoyu heard this voice, her face immediately darkened. Leng Ruoxue and the others were also very tactful and did not say anything. However, Ruhua did not seem to realize that she was not welcome. She still stood in front of everyone openly and shyly stole glances at the man she liked from the corner of her eye from time to time. Senior brother Xiaoyu, what took you so long? Ruhua asked coquettishly. I wouldn't have come if it weren't for the fact that old man Zhao is participating in the competition. Leng Xiaoyu said with a cold face. Damn it, was he blaming him for being late? He wasn't here to see this woman. What did it have to do with her if he came early or late? He couldn't help but feel uneasy. Senior brother Xiaoyu, you promised to come and watch me compete. Ruhua said with an aggrieved expression. Tears kept rolling in her eyes, but they didn't fall. Senior brother Xiaoyu, you promised to come and watch me compete. Ruhua said with an aggrieved expression. Tears kept rolling in her eyes, but they didn't fall. I asked you yesterday if you'd come to see me play. You said you would. Ruhua reminded her. I only said that I would come, but I didn't say that I would come to watch you compete, right? Leng Xiaoyu said speechlessly. He could only blame himself for being a little impatient yesterday and not making things too clear. However, this Ruhua was too self-righteous. This was the first time he had seen such a wishful woman. What a treasure. Senior brother Xiaoyu. Ruhua was so anxious that she was about to cry. And such a beautiful woman with teary eyes naturally made the other men near her feel pity for her. How can you do this? You promised this lady, but you didn't keep your word. This is too much. A man accused loudly, unable to stand it. That's right, how can you bully a woman? Someone echoed. Please keep reading on MYB Zero's novel, Come Don't Be Like This. Senior brother Xiaoyu didn't bully me. I was willing. Ruhua quickly defended Leng Xiaoyu, but her words made people's imagination run wild. How can there be such a man? How terrible, one man said jealously. Alas, what a woman! So protective of the man she liked. Have you said enough? At this moment, Leng Ruoxue chuckled and looked at the indignant men. Did these people really think they were buns? Just because they didn't say anything didn't mean that these people could spout nonsense. The men were stunned when they saw Leng Ruoxue. They were all in a daze. At the same time, they thought to themselves, what a beautiful woman. Why didn't they see her just now? Leng Ruoxue had been surrounded by Feng and the others in a low-key manner, so if she didn't make a sound, no one would notice her. However, when she saw that her own people were being bullied, and that her ancestor miraculously didn't make a sound, she couldn't help but say, Miss Ruhua, you should go to the competition, Leng Ruoxue reminded her lightly. She really didn't want to talk too much nonsense with Ruhua, because she knew that even if she did, she would be ignored by Ruhua. It's still early. I want to stay with senior brother Xiaoyu for a while, Ruhua said tactlessly. Up to you. Leng Ruoxue rolled her eyes and said speechlessly. She really didn't know what to say about Ruhua's shamelessness. It was better to let her ancestor solve this problem himself. She couldn't help but think wickedly. Little Schwer. Hearing Leng Ruoxue's words, Leng Xiaoyu looked at Leng Ruoxue pitifully, and used her eyes to convey his meaning. Little Schwer, you're not helping me anymore. I can't help. This woman is not an ordinary person. Leng Ruoxue replied with her eyes. However, the flirting between the two of them made Ruhua so jealous that she was about to go crazy. Senior brother Xiaoyu, who is this woman? Ruhua questioned loudly. Even though she had met Leng Ruoxue a few times, she had never asked about this woman's identity. Now that she saw that Leng Ruoxue and Leng Xiaoyu seemed to be very close, she couldn't accept it. Ooh, didn't that woman already have a man by her side? Why was she still snatching senior brother Xiaoyu from her? This was too much. Leng Ruoxue was depressed. This woman had been to her place several times, but she still didn't know who she was. However, on second thought, she felt relieved. After all, her target wasn't her. How could she catch Miss Ruhua's eye? It's none of your business who she is, Leng Xiaoyu said speechlessly. He was so annoyed with this woman that he didn't want to talk to her. However, he couldn't do anything too violent in public, so he could only choose to ignore her. However, this woman was relentless. Sigh. How annoying. Senior brother Xiaoyu. Ruhua wanted to say something else, but the host's voice sounded, so Ruhua had to reluctantly walk to the center of the arena. Phew. Seeing Ruhua leave, everyone heaved a sigh of relief. This woman gave them too much pressure. However, she did not provoke them, so they could not attack. Therefore, they could only endure it. However, in their hearts, they hoped that Leng Xiaoyu could resolve this problem quickly. Cheap sake, old ancestor. You should think of a way to settle this once and for all. Otherwise, everyone won't be able to stand it. Leng Ruoxue reminded with a naughty smile. Little Schwer, help me think of a good solution. This woman doesn't understand human language. There's nothing I can do. Leng Xiaoyu said helplessly. Please keep reading on MYB Zero's novel. Come cheap sake, old ancestor, can't you even handle a woman? Leng Ruoxue was speechless. I can't. If it were any other woman, I might have attacked long ago. However, I can't beat this woman up. Otherwise, it will be even more troublesome if I provoke In Ru Mei, Leng Xiaoyu explained. It would be easier if this Miss Ruhua was not In Ru Mei's disciple, but she was. Sigh. If you can't do anything, I can't do anything either, Leng Ruoxue said helplessly. Little Schwer, you can't leave me in the lurch. Leng Xiaoyu pleaded with a bitter expression. Cheap sake, old ancestor, I really have no choice. It's not that I don't want to help you, Leng Ruoxue said pitifully. Why don't you secretly kill her? Leng Ruoxue said half-jokingly after some thought. Chapter 10:14. Poisoned and unconscious too. I think it'll work, Leng said after some serious thought. Cheap sake, old ancestor, I was joking. Lung Ruoxue quickly said. Even though Ruhua was a little annoying, it wasn't to the point of having to kill her. I'm serious. When I find a good opportunity, I'll kill her, Lung Xiaoyu whispered. Freak. I didn't hear anything. Lung Ruoxue leaned into the freak's arms and said weakly. Oh, could the old ancestor be serious? Hehe. The freak couldn't help but chuckle happily when he saw Schwer's frightened expression. At the same time, the second round of the weapon refinement competition officially began. The second round of the competition was still at the spirit artifact level. However, storage equipment was required. Storage equipment belonged to the spatial category and could be considered the most difficult of all equipment. As for the appearance of the storage equipment, there were no additional requirements. In other words, one could refine what they liked according to the blacksmith's preferences. As for the rules of evaluation, in addition to quality, the size of the storage space was also an important criterion. After hearing the host's request, the disheveled old man methodically took out the materials needed to refine storage equipment. After lighting the furnace and preheating it, he threw the materials into the furnace in order. Please keep reading on MYB Zero's novel. That calm a moment later, all the materials were completely melted and purified. Immediately after, the disheveled old man outlined the appearance of the storage equipment he wanted. The storage equipment that old man Zao wanted to refine was a ring. This was also the most common appearance of storage equipment. However, he was very confident in the storage ring that he wanted to refine. After all, the materials he had prepared were the best, and the quality of the refinement would definitely be above that of all the blacksmiths. The main material for refining a storage ring was the void stone. Void stones were also divided into 4 types: elementary, intermediate, high, and supreme grade. Among them, elementary and intermediate void stones were relatively cheaper, while supreme grade void stones were at least 10 times more expensive than intermediate ones. However, supreme grade void stones were priceless. The main material for refining a storage ring was the void stone. Void stones were also divided into 4 types: elementary, intermediate, high, and top grade. Among them, elementary and intermediate void stones were relatively cheaper, while high-grade void stones were at least 10 times more expensive than intermediate ones. However, supreme void stones were priceless. About an hour later, old man Zao finally completed his work. Even though it was a little wasteful to use a supreme-level void stone to refine a spirit artifact-level storage ring, he couldn't be blamed. Who asked the girl's lowest-level void stones to be supreme grade? Even if he wanted to find an intermediate-level void stone, he couldn't. He felt very aggrieved, okay? Old man Zao couldn't help but secretly grumble. Fortunately, no one else could hear his thoughts. Otherwise, they would definitely vomit blood. In the audience, the corners of Lung Xiaoyu's mouth twitched as he looked at old man Zao in the middle of the arena. Especially when he saw old man Zao take out a dark blue void stone. His thoughts were the same as most of the people present. What a waste! Such a quality void stone could definitely be refined into a sacred-level storage equipment. Moreover, its quality was definitely of the highest quality. But now, it was actually used by the disheveled old man to refine a spirit artifact. This made his heart ache. Little Schwer, why did you give him a supreme void stone? Lung Xiaoyu said speechlessly. Because storage equipment was precious, the price of void stones had always been high, especially supreme void stones. There's nothing else. The void stone I gave him is already the worst one, Lung Ruoxue explained calmly. The materials for this artifact refinement competition were all prepared by the participating artifact masters, so the quality of the materials was also uneven. However, in Lung Ruoxue's opinion, this was a test of the artifact master's ability. There's nothing else. The void stone I gave him is already the worst one, Lung Ruoxue explained calmly. The materials for this artifact refinement competition were all prepared by the participating artifact masters, so the quality of the materials was also uneven. However, in Lung Ruoxue's opinion, this was a test of the artifact master's ability. While Lung Xiaoyu was sighing, the artifact masters in the competition had already finished refining their equipment. However, because there were still too many people, they still had to wait until the afternoon to know the results of the second round. However, after seeing the materials used by Old Man Zhao, they did not expect to get first place. After the second round of the competition ended, Lung Ruoxue and the others quickly returned to their residence. In the Artificer Association's meeting room, Mo Yin looked at the results in his hands and nodded in satisfaction. The first place in this round was Old Man Zhao again. Not bad. It seemed that the judge's evaluation this time was quite fair. Please keep reading on MYB0's novel. However, the judges had no more questions, but In Rumai's question came again. This match is unfair. In Rumai suddenly shouted. How is it unfair? Mo Yin raised his eyebrows and asked calmly, but he was annoyed. Did this woman have to find something to do? Why couldn't she stop? Old Man Zhao used a Supramel Void Stone, while the other artificers only used elementary and intermediate ones. Therefore, this competition is unfair to the other artificers, In Rumai argued. Do you mean that it would be fair if the other artificers also used Supreme Void Stones? Lu Feng said with a faint smile. How is that possible? Supreme Void Stones are expensive. How can these artificers afford to use them? In Rumai said truthfully. In a competition that only tested one's foundation, no artificers would use too good a material. Otherwise, what was the point of competing in the next few rounds? It's different if they can't afford it or can't bear to use it. That's their own problem. It doesn't mean that it's unfair to them if others use it. If they want good results, they can use high-level or even Supreme Void Stones. Lu Feng's long speech stunned In Rumai. That old man can also use elementary or intermediate void stones. It doesn't have to be a supreme one. This is the fairest for other weapon refiners, In Rumai emphasized. Chapter 10-15. Poisoned and Unconscious 3. Haha. What's the purpose of letting them prepare their own materials? Have you forgotten? If the other artificers are willing to use the supreme grade void stone, they can also use it. However, they did not, so how can they blame others? Vice President In, don't you even understand this logic? Lu Feng sneered. Among the artificers participating in the competition, many of them came from top families. However, they were not willing to use the supreme grade void stone. Therefore, even if they lost, they could not blame others. Lu Feng is right. The purpose of letting them prepare their own materials is also to test their ability. If an artifact master can't even obtain the materials, there's no future for them. Moreover, no one forced them to participate in the competition with low-level materials. If they lose, they lose. There's no need for Vice President In to find any excuses for them. Mo Yin chuckled. But this won't be able to find out the true genius artificer. In Rumai refused to give up. Vice President In, whether a blacksmith can succeed is one thing, but personal opportunities are equally important. If they don't have good opportunities, their starting point can only be lower than others. Therefore, let's not discuss this matter anymore. Mo Yin said decisively. President Liu, go and announce the results. Mo Yin instructed President Liu, who was trembling in fear. Yes, President Liu quickly replied. Then he immediately left the conference room. As he left, President Liu still had a lingering fear. Ooh, there were still 3 more matches. If the 3 of them were to argue like this every time, then they would have a huge problem on their hands. After the second round of results came out, Lung Ruoxue and the others were extremely calm and did not celebrate. After all, the materials used by the old man Zhao were superior after all. If he could not get first place even after this, there was no need to participate in this competition. At this moment, Lung Ruoxue and the others had just eaten dinner and were chatting in the garden. Butler, what's the matter? Lung Ruoxue saw the timid butler standing not far away from the corner of her eye and couldn't help but ask in amusement. Sigh, were they that scary? Now Ren's butler was like a mouse seeing a cat when he saw them. Miss Lung Ruhua. Ruhua wants to find Lord Lung Xiaoyu. The butler said fearfully, cold sweat breaking out on his forehead. Please keep reading on MYB0's novel. What did you say? Lung Ruoxue asked curiously. I said, I wonder if His Excellency Lung Xiaoyu is here. He seems to have gone out. The butler wiped the cold sweat off his forehead. Yes. Butler, you did well this time, Lung Xiaoyu praised. Your Excellency Lung Xiaoyu, are you meeting her or not? The butler asked carefully. Little Shuer, what do you think? Lung Xiaoyu looked at Lung Ruoxue and asked. Old ancestor, you can decide for yourself. Anyway, she's not here to see us. Lung Ruoxue smiled evilly. Little Shuer, are you really not going to care about me? Lung Xiaoyu said aggrievedly. Cheap sake old ancestor, I can't help you with relationships. This kind of thing has to be resolved by the person involved. If I interfere, I'll be looking for trouble, Lung Ruoxue said helplessly. All right then. I'll go see her one last time and clear things up with her, Lung Xiaoyu said helplessly. With that, he left the courtyard. However, he never returned. Lung Ruoxue and the others did not see Lung Xiaoyu return even when they were resting. Did anything happen to the cheap sake old ancestor? Lung Ruoxue muttered to the freak worriedly before bed. This is the Artificer Association, and he's Mo Yan's beloved disciple. What can happen? The freak said disapprovingly. Lung Xiaoyu was also scheming. Ordinary people could not scheme against him. Yes, that's true. Lung Ruoxue thought about it and went to sleep. The next day, Lung Ruoxue and the others left the room and saw Fu Ran standing alone in the courtyard, as if he was waiting for them. However, he hesitated when he saw them. Fu Ran, what's the matter? Lung Ruoxue couldn't help but ask curiously. These few days, Fu Ran had been very quiet in her room and rarely came out to move around. Why did she come out today? Shuer, do you have any pills to cure the aphrodisiac? Fu Ran asked after some thought. Please keep reading on MYB Zero's novel. Come, what kind of aphrodisiac? Who was poisoned? Lung Ruoxue's curiosity was piqued and her beautiful eyes sized up Fu Ran. Could it be that Fu Ran was poisoned? It didn't look like it. Aphrodisiac was also a type of aphrodisiac. However, its effects were better than aphrodisiacs. Furthermore, aphrodisiacs were no longer effective against cultivators of their level. However, aphrodisiacs were different. Aphrodisiacs were a type of potent aphrodisiac that someone had specially developed to target the physique of gods. After being poisoned by the aphrodisiac, even a god would have to endure the unbearable torture. The aphrodisiac had an antidote, but the materials used were extremely precious. Ordinary people could not take it out, let alone refine it. Don't worry about who it is. If you have an antidote, give me one. I need it urgently, Fu Ran said anxiously. You can't take the antidote randomly. You have to know that there are many types of aphrodisiacs with differing antidote is naturally the same. Therefore, we can't help you if you don't let us see this person, Lung Ruoxue explained. Really? Fu Ran was skeptical. He was good at refining weapons, but he was a layman when it came to alchemy, and he had never been poisoned by the aphrodisiac, so he couldn't tell if Lung Ruoxue was telling the truth. If you don't believe me, ask Zheng En. He's an alchemist. Lung Ruoxue pulled Zheng En in front of Fu Ran and said, Hee. Even though Fu Ran didn't dare to believe her, Zheng En was her savior. He would probably believe him. Really? Fu Ran asked carefully. Oh. Xiaoyu had specially told her that his descendant was a little fox, so she had to be careful not to fall for it. Yes, really. Zheng En braced himself. However, when he saw Fu Ran's trusting look, he couldn't help but feel a little guilty. However, he didn't dare not to follow Miss' words. In fact, there were many types of aphrodisiac, as Miss had said. The herbs needed to refine the aphrodisiac were as precious as the herbs used for its antidote. Some could not even be bought with money. Therefore, unless it was a particularly top-notch family, no one would be willing to use so many good herbs to refine the aphrodisiac that everyone despised. Many alchemists with a sense of justice and conscience would not refine such harmful things. Therefore, there were actually not many aphrodisiacs around. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.